Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of what if Deku didn't get the one for All Quirk to enter UA? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Chapter 1. Midoriya Izuku. All men are not created equal. In a world where fantasy becomes reality, where the astonishing is normal, and where 80% of the world has a quirk, I learned this unfortunate fact about life. I happen to be one of the lucky few that are born without a quirk, otherwise known as quirkless. Usually, kids get their parents' quirks, either one or the other. My mother always said that my father had fire breath, and she even makes small objects move towards her. And somehow I ended up with nothing? When I was little, I aspired to be just like the greatest hero of all times, All Might. The day I learned I was quirkless nearly destroyed me. I say nearly because I still believed, hoped, and wished with all my might, pun intended, that I would become the greatest hero ever, even without a quirk. I just had to work double, no maybe even triple, times the amount that my peers had too. But I knew, once I got into the greatest hero school in all of Japan, my story would be heard all over the world. I could be a legend just like my hero, All Might. He wouldn't want me to give up on my dreams. I will be the first quirkless hero. I will show the world that anyone can be a hero. Determination guided me to the right path, and I never let it go. It was a promise I was never going back on. Of course, there was a huge backlash. Bullies always made bigger and bigger dents in my heart, especially Kaken and his friends. Excuse me, Bakugo Katsuki, a very powerful neighbor and friend of mine. Kaken was a nickname I created for him. Despite his temper, constant bragging, and constant bullying, I still felt like, deep down, we were close friends. He needed me to keep him grounded, and I needed him to boost my determination. He doesn't know it, but he's part of the reason I trained for so long. Being a big fanboy comes with advantages, I must add. With 13 journals, I had kept detailed notes on nearly every hero in the world. Strategies were something I could come up with quickly. What I lacked in a quirk or in strength, I would make up for in battle notes that I had memorized from years of closely analyzing heroes and how they fight villains fearlessly. I also decided, 2 years before the UA entrance exam when I would be old enough to enter, to start building strength, aka muscle. Heroes needed to be strong, not just mentally, but physically too. Whenever I had free time after school, I would sneak off to find things to lift, haul, carry, hurl, pull, and push. I also started running. 1 mile in the morning, another in the evening. After all while, I had to increase the distance to 2 and eventually 3 miles, 2 times a day. My mother quickly noticed I was growing, not just because I was a kid, but because I was working out so much. Mom constantly complained that I was eating all the food. I smiled and told her the same thing each time. Mom, heroes have to eat a lot. And I'm going to be one, so I'd better start eating like one. So my quest to get into UA started. I struggled to work harder than all my classmates, who didn't have to overcome challenges like mine. Kaken always seemed to lead the attacks against me and my heart's mission. Like today, for example. The teacher was talking about what high schools we were going to go to, and of course, the most powerful kid in the class, Kaken, boasted about going to UA. I'm going to UA to be the greatest hero the world has ever seen. I'll surpass even All Might. Just you weaklings wait. In his hands, mini explosions crackled, showing off his excitement and determination. I always admired his quirk. Not only was it beautiful to watch, it was very strong. His battle skills had also greatly increased in the past few years. The teacher, however, had to ruin a perfectly good moment and announce something about me. Isn't Midoriya trying to go to UA as well? Every student turned to stare at me before bursting into laughter like I was a complete joke. My cheeks heated up and I looked towards the ground, my hands fiddling as I shifted in my seat. Deku? Going to UA? That's the best joke I've ever heard. He's quirkless. He can't get into the top school. He'll never be anyone more than a merchant or a store worker. Bakugo simply laughed in my face, poking my chest violently. I fell off my chair backward, only causing more of the class to laugh at me. I pushed my body into the back corner of the classroom. And if he tries to go to you, I'll kick his FING but right back where it belongs. I couldn't help the weak whimper that escaped my lips as I raised my shaking hands in an innocent gesture. Elk, Kakin, I'm not looking for competition. I promise I won't get in your way, I muttered quietly. Good, because I'm going to be the first and only one from our school to go into UA. You hear that, Deku? Me. A small explosion popped right in front of my face as a final warning as Bakugo walked off with his friends, laughing. I stood up slowly, my legs wobbly as I tried to regain balance, arms failing. I fixed my chair, setting it upright and sat down, staring dimly at my journal of hero notes. Before I knew it, tears were silently sliding down my cheeks. He was right and I knew it deep down. I can't become a hero without a quirk, can I, All Might? I muttered, almost wishing he was here, smiling down upon me. But nobody was here. I was alone. All Might. More like all alone. My sour mood never improved until later. What's this here? Your nerd book? Deku, are you expecting to get into UA with your brain alone? Let me tell you here and now, that's not going to work. You need to have a quirk to pass the practical test. Without one, you'll fail miserably. You have to be strong. And you aren't, so just give it up. Bakugo yelled, suddenly snatching my notes away from me. He dangled them just in front of my nose. I fell for it and tried to grab them back. Hey, give them back! I yelled when he moved his hand high into the air. He was at least a few inches taller than me, so I couldn't reach it no matter how hard I tried. It was agonizing. Why does he do this to me? Why? What? Do you need this so badly? Really? Loser. His explosions fired up, making me wearily step back in fear of being hurt, but most importantly, I stared at my notes in his hands. No, wait. Don't destroy it. Please, I begged desperately. Those notes were important to me, for my mission. Even if I did have the majority of them memorized, I still needed them, for reassurance. No, don't. He mocked me in a high-pitched squeal then laughed as he threw it out the window. Go get it if you need it that much. Bakugo yelled and laughed in my face. You're so weak you need a flimsy notebook to save you. That's what kicked in my determination. I stood up, making a fist. Actually, Kakin, you have it backwards. You're the weak one. You bully me because you fear I'm an actual threat to you. Well, guess what? I am. I punched him with all my strength I had been building up over the past year. He flew back a few feet, eyes wide in shock as he stared at me, his mouth open. Cat got your tongue, Kakin? I'll make it into UA. I doubt you will. I smiled and raised my fist into the air. I'm Midoriya Izuku. Remember me when I become a hero like All Might. I turned heel and left the classroom, heart racing. Did I actually just stand up and declare war to Bakugo? Adrenaline was pumping through me. I guess I choose to fight over flight this one time. And that was the start of it all. As my declaration of war finally sunk into me to be true, I realized now was my chance to push harder and harder than ever before. My strength wasn't at the peak it could be. I needed more training. Thankfully, I still had nearly half a year left to train. I could do it. I just had to believe in myself and not let my determination down. I was going to be the greatest hero ever. The first one without a quirk. Watch over me while I go on this long journey, All Might. Chapter 2, Tashinori Yagi All Might. How does one teach kids? You'd think that being All Might that I would know, right? Because I'm the #1 hero, I'm supposed to know everything. I'm supposed to be strong in both body and mind and have infinite wisdom. The truth is that I only know how to teach as much as the next guy. I suppose I could just take inspiration from my own teacher, who I should probably get in touch with soon since it's not every day that you get accepted to teach at the most prestigious hero school. Maybe standing and smiling counts as teaching? Distracted by my dilemma of teaching, I bumped into a small old lady in the supermarket, who gave me a dirty look and scolded me about watching where I was going. If only she knew who I really was. This form was more of a secret disguise nowadays, especially with me out of commission for so long. The bitter, metallic taste of blood in my mouth was becoming more and more familiar as time went on. I couldn't fully leave my post as a pro hero yet, not without finding a fully capable successor. Which is why I had decided to teach at UA. I'd be able to find someone worthy enough to train and carry on the symbol of peace legacy. And I needed to hurry. Sometimes, I worried if I would even be able to teach the next term at UA. Everything will be fine. At least that's what I hoped for. Tashinori. I looked up at the sound of a familiar woman's voice, hushed as she stared at me with wide green eyes, tears starting to form and threatening to spill. Was the best I could manage out. She had caught me by utter surprise. My real name was a well-kept secret that less than 10 people knew. But this woman, oh hell, I could never forget those green eyes. Inko. I finally spoke, my voice wavering. I had no doubt in my mind that this was her, but we hadn't spoken in 5 years. Not since the accident. Before I could react, her arms were around me, hugging tight. I winced, trying not to make my pain noticeable to her. Of course she was a bit busy crying into my shirt. Blood filled my mouth and I tried not to let it spill. Finally, I was able to wrap my arms around her. It felt foreign yet familiar. Especially the scent of her hair. The only real difference I could see was her maturity and weight. After a few moments, or what seemed like forever to me, she pulled away, trying to get rid of the tears staining her cheeks. Why are you back? I thought you had moved when. She cut herself off. I sighed. I suppose I needed to tell her the truth. I gazed around cautiously to make sure we weren't in earshot of the other shoppers before finally telling her. I'm teaching at UA this upcoming semester, and I'm looking for student to carry on my legacy. That's why I'm back. But I would appreciate it if you still acted like we swore we would. I can't let my secret spill for a while. I'll see you later, Inko. I regretfully walked away, my legs feeling like lead. I left the store to avoid any other confrontation with her. Leaving her like I did years ago, it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I love you, Inko. Please understand that's why I left. I hope you someday realize that. Even now, my chest ached painfully thinking about her. But I should probably explain. Being the #1 hero isn't all fun and games. Sure, I get praised by everyone and they all love me. That's great and all, but it also means villains are constantly after me and anyone I love. To get to me, they would use the people I care about the most to their advantage. I may be the #1 hero, but I'm also the #1 on a villain's hit list. The injury I received 5 years ago has only made this worse, as villains are hearing rumors that I'm becoming weak. Deep down, I know it's not just a rumor. Yet, I have to continue being the symbol of peace for all the citizens so fear and panic doesn't ensue. So, I lie through bloody teeth, smiling to trick the worry and fear deep inside me. Inko. Sweet Inko. I met her one fateful night, one I'll never forget. Darkness. All terrible things start in the dead of night, don't they? There wasn't even a moon that night. Many of the cars had long left the road, which made the night eerily silent. This made that night the perfect timing for an all-out, unexpected attack. If our concluded data was correct, the most powerful villains were scheduling a massive attack in downtown Tokyo. As a young, upcoming and rising pro-hero, I was helping out in the task force. I felt strong, confident. Those villains had nothing against us. Or so I thought. After fighting a couple hundred of weak villains, I didn't expect much of this attack. I tapped my foot on the ground, getting a little impatient. Why hadn't they striked yet? Were they waiting for some of us to fall asleep to let our guards down? Endeavor and I were both separated, stationed a few blocks apart, but I knew he would be at my side if something were to happen and vice versa. You see, Endeavor and I were rivals. Luckily we knew how to tone down our fighting, especially for something this important. An explosion followed by screaming a few blocks away caught my attention. I jumped up and raced into battle. My first instinct was to save all the innocent citizens. No need to worry. It's all right now because I am here. I bellowed my signature phrase as I carried people away from the quickly spreading fires that were nearing my feet. I took as many people as I could possibly carry to safety, my allies taking them farther from the battleground. I went back to help a woman with bright green eyes, but I was suddenly surrounded by villains. It had been a trap. I was ready to use a Texas smash and blow them all away like ants, but I couldn't as much as I'd wanted to. The blast would worsen the fires, create more damage to the surrounding properties, and hurt the innocent woman. The greatest hero ever, All Might. What an honor it will be to finally end you and your legacy. A menacing voice boasted from the shadows of a tall building behind me. I turned on a dime in the direction of the voice, eyes scanning, only to find the shadow of a man. Come out and fight me like a man, villain. I addressed to him, standing tall and smiling. You will not defeat the great symbol of peace. I felt good, my hands on my hips. Being young and free was fun. At times, I was quickly taking my surroundings in, sensing how many supervillains were around me. Over a dozen? Almost 2 dozen? In the darkness, it was hard to tell. And I didn't know all of them, which meant some had quirks that I didn't even know. Whatever. As soon as I blast them, a loud, blood-curdling and terrified scream cut my racing thoughts off. It was the scream of a desperate animal in grave danger. The woman. She was struggling, trying to fight off 3 villains who were holding her. My heart pounded. I had to save her and fast. Think All Might. Think, oh, is All Might in a pinch? Did I outsmart the heroes? As we speak, your comrades are fighting my fake league. A diversion. Even Endeavor's not here to save you now, All Might. If you were taken off the map, he would get exactly what he's wanted for years now. Let's say I'm doing him a favor. The man from earlier spoke, but as he came out of the shadows, I realized a few things about him. The first one, he was young, perhaps still a kid. Taken by the darkness that early? I almost felt bad for him. The second was that his white shirt was ripped and covered in blood stains. He didn't seem to be hurt at all, not by the way he was moving, so the blood wasn't his own. He hurt someone. That made me more angry than ever. My smile turned into one of anger. If you knew me. I shall avenge whoever you hurt, Stain Man. Justice will be served. I spoke proudly and activated One for All. I carefully aimed my Texas smash at the villains surrounding me only, not the woman. Thankfully, she was unscathed when I finished. Time to deal with the Stained One. Stain, huh? I love it. Thanks for the perfect villain name, All Might. Time for you to die like that hero I killed a few minutes ago. He laughed, his red bandana and mask covered the features of his face so I couldn't tell who the boy underneath the evil was. He rushed at me, killing intent in his eyes and his blades out. That's when I realized how fast he was. As fast as me. Possibly even faster if I wasn't young and at the top of my game. I dodged his blades at the last second, getting nicked on the arm. It was barely anything, so I wasn't worried. With One for All activated, I rushed in for a flurry of fast and strong punches. Nearly all of them he blocked with his blades or dodged. A villain to match the great All Might? Who was this guy? I had never heard of him or seen him. He didn't even have a name until just now. And he killed a hero? I had never heard of such a young villain that was going around killing heroes. Time to use the big guns. I grit my teeth, still smiling as I powered up a larger scale attack, but at the last moment he moved behind the woman he was holding hostage with his buddies. I froze. Does All Might not want to hurt the poor lady? Stain taunted, grinning at me. He used her to protect himself. How cruel yet smart. Leave her out of this. That was a low blow even for a villain, Stain. Come fight me. I shouted, stepping closer to him, but not too close. The poor lady looked so scared, yet resilience burned in her eyes, something you see in a hero. I admired her for being so brave and cheering me on. I wasn't going to let her down. I swore to myself in that moment. Stain held his blades up to her neck, ready to kill her. How about we make a deal, huh? I said no. Don't you dare hurt her. One for All was begging to being used on this guy, but I was going to have to use all my control not to hit the woman and hurt her. Now I was worried. Could I do that? I didn't have time to decide, only to act. I squeezed my eyes and used a smash on Stain, hoping to not hit the woman too badly. I dared open my eyes to find. Stain and his blades were just gone. All the other villains were groaning on the floor, defeated. Best to let the police take care of them. And finally my eyes laid upon the woman. I let out a breath that I didn't realize I had been holding. She was completely uninjured, save for maybe a scratch or two. She struggled to get to her feet. I raced towards her and held out a hand. She grasped mine and I knew, from that first moment of contact, she was something special. "It's all right. I am here," I whispered to her. "Thank you, All Might. I believed in you the whole time. I knew you wouldn't hurt me." She smiled, eyes practically sparkling. "The woman's name? Inko Midoriya. I met her and that's when it all began. We eventually got married and even had a son named Izuku. A secret the world will never know. In order to protect my loved ones from the evil that lurks in the world, I left them to be a hero, to continue being the symbol of peace. We swore we would act like we didn't know each other if we ever met, but we had broken that promise now. Twice. At least her son still doesn't know the truth. That All Might is his father. My son will be safe. Until I saw him at the UA entrance exam a few months later. Chapter 3 Part 1 Midoriya Izuku. I didn't sleep very well the night before the exam. Despite trying to go to bed early, reading a book and trying to relax, the nerves in my stomach kept me up. Even when I did nod off, it was only for an hour or two, and my dreams consisted of either passing or failing the UA exam. Since I didn't have a quirk, this was going to be the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It was unfair. Didn't complain. I had long accepted this fact and I learned to work my way around it. The hard workers tend to accomplish more and feel better about those accomplishments. My mom was supportive of me, though I could tell deep in her green eyes that she was really scared about me going to the exam in the first place. She cooked me an amazing breakfast, which I ate, but due to my unsettled stomach, I had a hard time keeping it down. I managed not to barf, grabbed my notebook and backpack as I waved goodbye to my mom. "Good luck, Izuku. You can do it." She cheered, her hand gripping the side of the door so hard her knuckles were white and shaking. She was worried about me. I wished there was some way I could reassure her, but I was nearly as scared as she was. I flashed her a smile and a thumbs up, trying to imitate All Might. I noticed she flinched and averted her eyes away from me. She was crying? Was she just that scared of me going to the exam? Even from my distance walking away, she looked heartbroken. The last time I saw her like this was 5 years ago. I shook my head. I had to focus on the task at hand. I could help my mom later tonight when I get home. She had promised to make me the best dinner even if I didn't do well on the exam. But I was determined. I want to be the first quirkless hero. I had the resolve, mental and physical strength, even without a quirk. I could do this. Distracted by my thoughts and imaginations of becoming the greatest hero of all time, I accidentally bumped into none other than Bakugo. "Deku? What the F are you doing here, UB? I told you not to get in my way. There is no way I'm losing my top spot to a loser with no quirk like you. Now get lost, nerd," he bellowed, shoving me out of the way. He caught me off guard and I squeezed my eyes, preparing for the hard impact on the ground. When it never came, I opened my eyes wide in confusion. A real girl, was standing next to me. I realized I hadn't hit the ground because of her quirk. I was floating right above the ground. Whoa! That's when I started freaking out and squirming around like a fish out of water, trying but failing to not embarrass myself. Once my feet were back on the ground, I relaxed, that is, for a second, but I then realized the girl was still standing next to me. I felt my face and ears heat up. "You alright? Well, you look fine now. Don't worry, my quirk is harmless, you'll be fine. I'll see you around." The nice girl waved to me with a smile and walked off. I was so flustered I hadn't even asked what her name was. Well, I would probably see her again later, anyways. I took a deep breath and let out a shaky breath. It was very hard to relax when I was just a bundle of nerves, ready to spring at any moment. The practical exam was first. A pro hero that I immediately recognized to be Present Mike, known for his radio show and vibrant show host personality, explained the concept of the exam: gather as many points as you can by destroying robots. It seemed simple enough, but I soon discovered it was a lot harder than Mike had explained it. Everyone else had amazing quirks that destroyed robots faster than I could keep up. I ran through the streets, searching for a robot to get some points. Unfortunately, as soon as I would near one, someone else had killed it. I knew Bakugo's quirk was perfect for this. He probably had a ton of points while I was still stuck at a measly 0 points. Maybe Katsuki was right, I couldn't become a hero. Not without a quirk. I was at such a disadvantage. Despite all my physical training, it couldn't even come close to comparing to a superpower. In that moment, all my previous motivation drained out of me. I stood to the sidelines in a numb state, simply watching these heroes around me, racking up points. I felt empty, hollow. I slowly and humbly began walking towards the exit. What was the point? Now that I had seen how impossible it was for me to even get 1 point, I didn't feel like trying. I lowered my head in defeat. I guess I'll become a police officer, so I can at least help in the effort, I muttered to myself. I could do a normal job, get some money and watch the amazing heroes like I always did. It took me a moment to realize people around me were screaming and running toward the exit. That snapped me out of my daze. I turned around to see one of the giant robots that I vaguely remembered seeing in the introduction. It was worth 0 points, but that's not what really captured my attention. The nice girl, the one who had saved me from falling earlier, was trapped, with no way to move, debris surrounding her. The giant robot was about to crush her. Her crying and pleading face snapped something inside me. I ran as fast as I could towards her, screaming in "Oh" at the top of my lungs. I stood in front of her, glaring at the robot. "You won't hurt her, I won't let you. You'll have to go through me." I knew dim and well that I was being reckless, but it was the only thing I could think of. Adrenaline was racing through my veins, my sense of logic clouded. I just wanted to save the innocent girl, so I would protect her as much as I possibly could. The huge robot raised its arm as if to aim its gun at us. I stood there, not backing down. I was going to keep her from harm. I glared at its hulking form. Suddenly, as if by a miracle, the robot shut down, the lights in its red eyes powering off. I let out a huge sigh of relief and tried not to pass out as I came down from my adrenaline. I felt the heroes stare as I helped the nice girl up, who thanked me for saving her life. I gave her a wavering smile. Sure, I had saved someone, but I know it wouldn't be enough to pass the exam. Not by a long shot. I sulked the rest of the day, and into the next day, despite my mom trying to cheer me up with great food and hugs. But I had given up. I wasn't fit to be a hero after all. Chapter 3 Part 2, Toshinori Yagi All Might. As I inspected the soon-to-be students' performances, one seemingly familiar person caught my attention. I couldn't believe my eyes. I rubbed at them and blinked 3 times. Nope. There was no doubt about it. Those were the same vibrant green eyes, and let me tell you, I would never forget her eyes. That boy had her eyes, I knew it from the moment he was born. That young man on the cameras was my son. He was actually trying out for UA. Although, as far as I knew from Inko, he was curriculous. Then why was he at the exam? Was he going nuts? He couldn't possibly think that he would pass without a quirk. That would be nearly impossible. The exam was intended to test not just mental but physical abilities as well, which easily disqualified any normal human. Eraserhead, or Aizawa, seemed to notice my sudden uneasiness, even though I had tried to hide it as best as I could. "Is something wrong, All Might?" He gazed at me with his bloodshot eyes, raising an eyebrow. Nothing." I waved my hands in front of me, mustering up a big grin and a thumbs up. I quickly looked back at the surveillance cameras, not wanting to take my eyes off the boy for too long. I was scared for Izuku. Would he be all right? From the very start, he had been slow, barely even noticing that all the other kids had taken off before he even started running. This was already going south. I wished I could yell at him through the cameras. Alas, I couldn't. It would reveal my long-kept secret, something I couldn't do until the time was hopefully right. I took a second scan around the room. Although nobody has ever died competing in the UA exams, there have been several injuries. However, in case of emergency, there was a manual override remote, usually used on specific robots in dire situations to prevent fatal incidents. I noticed the small remote sitting on the back wall. All the school officials and judges were immersed in the action of the exam. I took a fleeting glance at the remote. It was tempting. I wanted to protect my son without getting in trouble with the school officials. But if I was caught pressing the button, it was definitely a risky move. I hesitated, debating it. I reached out with an unsteady hand, taking one last glance at everyone else in the room. As I expected, they were too engrossed. Quickly and silently I grabbed the remote and hid it in my big hand. It was rather small with one red button and a small rod. I swore to myself that I would only press the button if I needed to. Otherwise, I wouldn't do anything and place it back where it was. I turned my attention back to the screens, watching the kids beat up robots left and right with an interesting variety of unique quirks. I scanned around to see if I could catch another glimpse of Izuku. When I found him, my heart sank and I swallowed the lump in my throat. The poor kid, the look on his face. He had completely given up. His once lively green eyes were now dull, lacking any happiness, hope, or excitement. He seemed to be walking back to the exit. The determination that I once saw him in the beginning of the exam was completely gone. Izuku looked utterly defeated. That's when I realized why he had taken the test in the first place. Being a hero was his dream, so much so he would work past his limits despite not having a quirk. For a split second, I saw a younger version of myself in his place. A boy with bright blonde hair, sparkling blue eyes, and a smile like the sun. I shut my eyes. He was me. I held back a chuckle. So this is why I felt so attached to him despite never meeting him. Like father, like son. That expression had never applied so much before until now. Then I got the chance to see the hero inside him. A girl was in trouble from one of the colossal 0-point robots. I watched as Izuku rushed in to help her, but realized there wasn't enough time to help her escape the heavy debris. I clutched the remote in my hand, careful not to crush it or accidentally trigger the button, but I was worried. What would he do? Instead, just like a selfless hero would, he protected her, standing in front of her. I felt like I was watching some superhero movie or comic, but this was all real. I gulped, hesitating and waiting for the right moment to hit the shutdown button. As the robot aimed and charged its gun at Izuku and the girl, he stared at it with intense bravery and fiery passion. I knew if the robot were to shoot, he would take the hit directly, making sure the girl was protected. I held my breath and at the last second, I finally pressed the shutdown button. Luckily the judges didn't seem to notice me. Instead, they were cheering and applauding, holding up high scoreboards in excitement. I used this as my chance to place the remote back in its proper place, joining in on the clapping and moving closer to take a better look at my son. Izuku stared at the robot in complete awe, but he seemed happier than ever. The girl he was protecting gave him a huge hug, probably thanking him. He was a hero, even without a quirk. Luckily, as the discussions came up about the heroes they would be accepting to UA, the judges all agreed that Izuku would be given the chance to be in Class A, thinking that the robot had shut down because of his quirk. I gave a sigh of relief. They didn't suspect me at all. I was going to keep my job as a teacher and still keep the secret about my son safe. As the #1 hero, I was filming all the acceptance letters, specialized per student. This way they would get to hear results from their favorite hero. I was excited to film Izuku's and of course, would have to be careful about what I said. I planned to go classic, with simple remarks and congratulations. I wished I could have seen his reaction to watching the acceptance letter. But in my mind, I already could visualize his ecstatic and grinning face. And hey, call me biased, but I would like to keep my future successor in the family. Chapter 4, Todoroki Shoto. I hate my father. And no, this wasn't just some rebellious teen phase. It was so much more than that. Every day I look in the mirror and think about how repulsive my left side is. It's to him. I couldn't stand it. There were days I wanted to hide that side, and sometimes I experimented in hiding it with my own ice quirk. Of course, that got cold and I couldn't last too long, but it was better than having to physically see it and feel the heavy shame in my gut. Anything was better than being reminded of him. Oftentimes I broke mirrors, refusing to look at my own hideous reflection. A knock on my door interrupted my swirling thoughts. Go away. I don't want to see anyone. Shoto, your father would like to speak to you. A feminine voice replied from outside the door. Of course he did. Did he ever care about my feelings? It was always, father wants this, father wants that. Well, I don't give a DMN about what he wants. I never truly have. I let out a tired sigh. Fine, I muttered coldly, walking out of my room towards my dad's dreaded office, hands in my pockets and face expressionless. I promised myself that I would never let anyone get close to me and see my emotions. I wasn't my dad and I wanted to prove that. What is it? I grimly ask him as I step into his office. I recommended you for UA. Your admission has been granted. You will start there during the new term in a few days. My father explained, holding up an envelope addressed to me. I assumed that was the acceptance letter. He gazed down upon me with the same look he had given me my entire life. You will go to UA, be better than all the students, and surpass All Might. He gruffly ordered. Yes, because that was basically my life's purpose, according to him. It was like I was a robot, built to do exactly what he wanted with no other goal in life. He never truly cared about my choices and what I wanted to do. It was always better hero than All Might. I was so tired of it. Fine, but I refuse to use my left side. I'll be a better hero than you with just my right side. Just you wait. I growl out. Not waiting to hear a reply, I swiftly turn away from him, hands in my pockets. Around my father, I could never keep up my calm demeanor. I didn't mind as much since he needed to know how I felt. Nobody else did. This was strictly between me and him. You'll learn to accept your left side. Only then will you surpass me. I overheard Endeavor growl out from his room. It was the same thing he always said, but I denied him each time. My face returned to its usual neutral expression despite my internal conflict going haywire. At least I knew I could keep my cool at school. Or so I had hoped. Speaking of school, I should perhaps read the acceptance letter. After all, it was mine. I ripped open the envelope, finding a holographic projection of All Might. What was he doing on this? Hello, Todoroki Shoto. It is my pleasure to inform you that your recommendation to UA has been accepted. Starting on Monday, I will see you in my homeroom class 1A with my coworker Eraserhead. Yes, that is right. I'm teaching this term at UA. I'll see you soon, Shoto. Good luck. He waved towards the camera with a huge grin right before it shut off. I rolled my eyes. Of course, I was in All Might's class. I wonder if my dad knew since they were both pro heroes. Or maybe he didn't, they weren't that close since my father declared them to be rivals. Then again, my father wasn't close to anyone, even my siblings. He tended to destroy those close to him. Like my mother. I shook my head and focused on the task at hand. I could not afford to think about her right now. I was going to the top hero school where I could prove to my father that I wasn't anything like him. That he could not control me. I opened the door to the classroom of 1A at UA on the first day of school. I seemed to be early, as there were only 2 students sitting in desks, waiting. I gazed at them coldly but never made eye contact as I sat in a chair. I wasn't in the best of moods. As more people entered the room, I noticed a thin layer of frost was spreading on my desk. Of course. I stared straight at the front of the classroom, ignoring the chatter around me. I had no time for petty socializing. Not when I had a goal to accomplish. A bright green-eyed boy sat down in the desk next to me. My heterochromic eyes shifted to the side to glance at him. He had curly, bouncy green hair with freckles dotting his rosy cheeks. He seemed full of energy, excited to be here. Hello. I'm Izuku Midoriya. He greeted, holding a polite hand out for a handshake. I hesitated, staring at him, looking from his ecstatic face to his hand. I'm Todoroki Shoto, I said but didn't shake his hand. He looked a bit disappointed and lowered his hand down. His eyes still sparkled with innocence. I wondered if he had a normal, happy life with loving parents. He looked like one of those kids with perfect suburban families. I kept my hands in my pockets and ignored the kid next to me. He clearly was too naive. He had no idea the horrors of the world. Idiot. I stared back at the front of the classroom. Finally, the door opened and All Might rushed in. I am here. The kid next to me practically started squealing. Looks like someone was a big fan. Well, to be fair, the whole class seemed excited. I was the only one who wasn't reacting. I know he's the #1 hero, but this is a classroom. We're here to learn to be a hero, not get autographs. Welcome to UA. I will be your main teacher. Eraserhead should be joining us later. Until then, let's test out all your quirks. Chapter 5. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku. Izuku. My mother's shrill voice came from the door. Letter. UA. She looked so excited that her body was shaking and she couldn't form a complete sentence. A letter from UA? But I was sure I failed the exam. I even told my mom I ended the exam with a total of 0 points. Still, she was right. In her hands was an envelope from UA, addressed to me. My eyes went wide. But I failed. Maybe it's just a rejection letter? Yet, it occurred to me, why would they bother telling someone that you were rejected from the hero course? I took the letter from her hands and placed it down on the desk in my room. I stared at it for a full minute or two and gulped. I was nervous. Did I actually get in? Or was I placed in regular classes? Or maybe I was on a waiting list. Did they even have a waiting list? I wasn't even sure. Are you going to open it? My mom asked from the doorway of my room. I took a deep breath and ripped open the envelope. A little hologram appeared from a circular disc. It was All Might. I couldn't believe my eyes. What? Hello, Izuku Midoriya. I'm here to inform you of your current situation. While you may not have passed the exam with any points, we at UA feel you have the potential to become a hero. All Might spoke to me through the hologram. It was clear this was filmed for each student personally, and as the #1 hero, he was the true symbol of a school like UA. You see, Izuku, you valued the safety of an innocent person over your own, a selfless quality seen in the best of heroes. I must say your actions were reckless yet inspiring. You awed our panel of judges. They ranked you to be among the top scorers with Katsuki Bakugu and Todoroki Shoto. Congratulations, I will be seeing you in my homeroom class of 1A on Monday. Don't be late. Now I couldn't believe my ears. I was accepted to UA? Among the top scorers? What? Mom, I'm going to you. I softly said the words as I was having trouble believing them. Then a smile slowly spread on my lips. I did it. I made it into UA without a quirk. I let out a cheer, running towards my mother as I gave her a huge embrace. Now, I couldn't wait to walk into the class with everyone else. I couldn't wait to make new friends with amazing quirks. Friends worthy of being heroes. When I opened the door to the classroom 1A, I was immediately greeted by the nice girl who I first saw at the exam. The one I saved from that giant robot. Now I could officially get a name since we didn't officially meet. Hello, I'm Izuku Midoriya. I flash a friendly smile and give a small wave. I guess I'm in your class. Hi, my name is Achiko Uraraka. Thanks so much for saving me. My smile widened at her enthusiasm. She seemed happy about seeing me again. The feeling was mutual. Can't be late. There are exactly 45 seconds until I'm late. Excuse me. A guy with dark hair and glasses stood by the door, waiting for us to move. I nearly forgot we were blocking the doorway. Oh, sorry about that. I moved out of his way, letting him pass as he quickly took a seat. By now, most of the students in the room had taken their seats. Including, of course, Kaken, who glared daggers at me as I stepped past him. Who the f let you in here, Deku? You're in the wrong class, idiot. There's no way you ranked as high as they said you did. Bakugu crossed his arms, giving me a deadly cold glare before turning away from me, annoyed by just my presence. I say in a breath and downcast my eyes as I continued walking through the classroom. I knew he would never change. The only empty seat was next to a silent teen with unusually colored hair. Half of his hair was white, while the other half was red. He even had heterochromatic eyes that seemed to match the whole half and half thing with his hair. I studied his intriguing appearance for a moment before sitting down in the desk next to him. I heard some girls in the row behind us speaking in hushed giggles and sighs. It was obvious they were whispering about his good looks. After a bit of contemplation, I flashed my best smile in an attempt to make a friend with a new classmate. I could do this. I was here to be a hero, so had to learn the importance of friends and teamwork. Those were important qualities that a hero needed to have. Hello, I'm Izuku Midoriya. I held out a hand to properly shake with him. He gave me a glance, both of those unique eyes piercing into me. I felt the temperature drop a few degrees. I wonder if that had to do with the ice that was forming near the guy's desk on his right side. I'm Todoroki Shoto. He gave a curt nod, and that's all the acknowledgement he gave me, turning away from me and intently staring straight ahead at the front of the classroom, ignoring his surroundings. Oh, okay, I said quietly, even though I knew the response fell on deaf ears. I clenched my hands on my lap and hanged my head limply, a frown forming on my lips. It was clear he didn't want to talk to me. I wondered why he was so distant and cold. What made him like that? I didn't have much time to think about that because the door opened again. I am here. I recognized both the statement and the voice. My head sprang up. It was All Might. I brightened up, my heart beating faster as I stared at the face of my idol. The inspiration behind all my goals. The hero I aspired to be like. I tried to contain my excitement, but I knew I was practically vibrating. Welcome to UA. I will be your main teacher. Eraserhead should be joining us later. Until then, let's test out all your quirks. All Might announced, herding us all outside in P uniforms. As you may have noticed, your quirks can allow you to do amazing things. But did you know they can be used for physical activity too? Why don't you try it out? See what happens. I hesitated. Since I didn't have a quirk, I would have to rely on my regular abilities, which I must admit, were probably only as good as a normal athlete. We went through a series of tests like a 100-meter sprint, grip test, long jump, and ball throw. I watched as people used their quirks in the most creative ways. Of course, Bakugo kept scoring really high. Along with the boy I sat next to, Todoroki. He was still closed off, not saying much to anyone, even All Might. Maybe I was paranoid or just really nervous, but I felt like All Might's eyes were watching me a bit more than anyone else. It was like he knew I didn't have a quirk. Well, that was to be expected. I knew I would be caught eventually. I scored lower than everyone else. No surprise there. My results were that of a regular sports athlete, considering I had built muscle and endurance for 2 years. So I wasn't completely overwhelmed, but still. I really wished I had a quirk. Those scores were so amazing. I walked over to Todoroki, intending to congratulate him on his high placement on the scoreboard, but was stopped by Kaken, who shoved in front of me, smirking. Oh, hey, look who got last place. None other than little Deku. Did you come here thinking it would be easy to be a hero? All you're doing is mocking the school's training. When are you gonna realize that you don't belong here, stupid Deku? I felt shame wash over me from his spiteful words. I looked away from him as my hands trembled at my sides, unsure of what to do. I heard him let out a snort as he prepared to berate me again with hateful insults, when he was suddenly interrupted halfway through. Katsuki Bakugo, we do not bully our classmates. Your behavior is unhero-like. I would like you to apologize to Midoriya. Having good sportsmanship is a part of being a hero, and you must uphold those values if you ever wish to become one. It was All Might. I flushed with embarrassment, shrinking a bit, attempting to look smaller. Everyone's eyes were on the three of us as the commotion continued. Bakugo paused for a moment, deciding that getting in trouble with All Might wasn't the best idea. He quickly muttered out a barely intelligible, "I'm sorry," before looking away from me, a look of disdain on his face. All Might gave a huge grin and addressed the class instead of embarrassing us more. Good sportsmanship is key. I respect all pro heroes, even the ones at the bottom, because they are still heroes, people worth respecting and praising, even if they come in last place. Now it's time for lunch. He called out and everyone cheered, running back inside. I solemnly followed them, my mood wavering. The promise of food did lighten my feelings, if only by a bit. There was fish, rice, and noodles. Everything I loved. I grabbed a bowl and chopsticks, looking around for a place to sit down. I scanned the cafeteria and noticed a lone table in the back corner where someone familiar was sitting, far away from everyone else. I walked over to that table and sat down. Hi, I said awkwardly. Todoroki turned his head slowly, and he glared at me. Do you even understand what personal space is? He spoke calmly, annoyed, but not angry like Kaken. Oh, of course I do. But I'm across the table from you. How am I too close? I asked, tilting my head, confused. Did he really not want to make a friend? The poor guy was always alone. Why did he choose it? I know that being alone is, and I desperately needed better friends than Kakin, since he tended to bully me a lot. You just are. I have to go. He abruptly stood up, taking his lunch and walking off, ignoring me and everyone else. Well, so much for him. I started to dig into my rice when Uraraka and the strict guy with the glasses came over to me. I never really got his name. He bowed to me politely. My name is Tenya Ida, it's nice to meet you Midoriya. Ida stood up, adjusted his glasses and then sat down at my table. Uraraka joined me as well. It seemed these would be my new friends here at UA. I was excited to get to know them better. Just as I opened my mouth to start a conversation with them, someone was calling my name from the door behind me. Izuku. Izuku, I need to speak with you. I looked behind me and spotted All Might calling me into the hallway. I glanced at my new friends, nervously gulping. I briskly excused myself before getting up and heading towards the door All Might was politely holding open. I walked out the door, and we stepped further into the hallway, out of earshot from everyone. I need to tell you something important, Midoriya Izuku. Chapter 6 Part 1. Tashinori Yagi. I did my honest-to-goodness best on keeping tabs on Midoriya, all the while being fair to the other students I was supposed to focus on. I tried to be as discreet as possible, but he must have noticed by now anyways considering the times he's caught me looking at him. He probably thought I was some sort of creep. I sure hope he didn't think much of it. Otherwise, I was in trouble. Well, the athletic test helped me figure out how strong Izuku was, but it also challenged the other students so that they would get comfortable into using their quirks for a variety of purposes. As expected, without a quirk, Izuku came in dead last. However, I was excited to see they were quite abnormal for a young kid his age. He had the scores of professional adult athletes. It was perfect. He had already trained his body to be physically capable, which meant he could use One for All right away with just few regime training sessions. I had to tell him about One for All. And I had to do it today. There is much more scheduled quirk training tests the students have to complete, and at this rate, the school board is bound to find out about Izuku being quirkless. I decided I would talk to Midoriya at lunch when he and I could talk privately without anyone overhearing. When the time came I had to force my nerves down. I could do this. Just be the great symbol of peace you always are. I called him into the hallway and tried to act completely normal, but the seriousness in my voice was clear. I need to tell you something important, Midoriya Izuku. I took a breath and then continued to speak while the boy was paying close attention. Before I saw anything, I need to make sure I have your trust. Will you keep this a secret? Just between us. Even from your mother? I could tell Izuku was confused. It was clear in his eyes and furrowed eyebrows. He shifted on his feet, backing away from me just in the slight. The tension in the air suddenly became more awkward than I had anticipated. I needed to make him more comfortable. I'll keep it whatever it is a secret for you. I just don't understand why you would tell me, All Might. He stammered, but straightened his back and made a fist at his side. You're my greatest idol. I'll do whatever it takes to become like you. I couldn't help but laugh. Oh my, wasn't this kid just adorable? He was my son after all. The same determination, the same smile, the same flash in his eyes. Izuku was going to be a greater hero than me. I felt more confident about giving him my power. My boy, what if I told you that you are going to be like me? You are going to be one of the greatest heroes the world has ever known. I gave him my classical smile, but this one was genuine. Almost immediately his eyes lit up. Really? But his face immediately fell. All Might, I'm sure by now, after the tests, you realize that I don't have a quirk. I did know this before the tests, but I wasn't going to tell him that. But this relates to the secret I wanted to reveal to you. My quirk is the rarest quirk in existence. It's called One for All, and it allows me to pass on its power to someone I feel worthy. I paused for a moment, to let him take it in and just for being dramatic. Izuku Midoriya, I have chosen you as the next holder of One for All. He froze, and for a moment I was afraid I blew his mind or something. I explained it in very simple terms and I didn't particularly have the time to go into details or history. Wait, So you can pass your power to others? Did it get passed to you? I nod. Yes, One for All has had 8 users so far, including me. I can transfer this power to you and train you to use it. However, because I'm teaching here, we would have to train outside of class, and I would need to use my disguise. Disguise? Izuku questioned, and I was already ahead of him. My body was already screaming at me to revert back. Stupid time limit. With a poof, I reverted to my original form, becoming more of Toshinori rather than All Might. Izuku made a horrified face, and his eyes flew open. What happened? Where did All Might go? He was freaking out. I coughed, holding back the blood that threatened to come out of my mouth. I am All Might. Look, kid, I got badly injured a few years ago and hero work is becoming harder and harder to do, which is part of the reason I came to teach. My strong form has a time limit, I can't use it longer than a few hours. I need a successor, someone to take my place. I'm planning on retiring soon. I spilled my secrets to him, but I had a feeling I could trust him to keep them. Instead of being horrified, his eyes showed sympathy and sadness. So, the rumors are true, you are weakening. He muttered. I'm so sorry, All Might. I'll do it. I'll be your successor. I'll take your quirk. Izuku made another fist, this time. Tighter and almost as a promise to himself. The resolve in his eyes, I almost wanted to hug him. A younger version of myself with long messy blonde hair popped into my mind. Memories of training with that resolve to become the symbol of peace. At the time I was so naive and young. I could only hope Midoriya wouldn't make the same mistakes as me. But I appreciate it, Izuku. I reached up and yanked a piece of my hair out. Eat this. To gain my quirk, you must simply have some of my DNA. He made a face, reaching a slow hand to take the hair. He was hesitant at first. Are you sure this will work? Of course. Just be glad I'm not making you eat a fingernail. I tried to joke, but he didn't seem to find it funny, just more disturbing. I needed to find the book of dad jokes. Then I could make him laugh. Izuku ate my hair, then promptly stated, I don't feel different. I laughed. Give it time to kick in, my boy. I'll talk to you once again after class. I was able to transform back into All Might and race off, not wanting to face any more confrontation than that. My job, for now, was done. But we still had a lot of work to do. It might be time to call up my former teacher. I have no idea how to teach Izuku to use One for All. Chapter 6 Part 2, Midoriya Izuku. When All Might walked away, I was left feeling in shock. Was it all just a dream? I pinched my arm hard. Nope, not a dream. Definitely real. So now I had a quirk? One for All? I had never heard of such a thing. But why would the greatest hero, All Might, lie to me? What would he gain by lying to me? I didn't think he would. So this was the secret he wanted me to keep. It was a big secret. But I could do it. I promised him. Plus, if he really is going to retire, then he needs someone that can stand in his place as the symbol of peace. It could be Endeavor, but I think All Might didn't like that idea. This new quirk of mine. Could I use it? I certainly didn't feel different. Not even in the slightest in terms of power or strength. Maybe I didn't know how to use it yet, so it wasn't active? I had a lot of questions, and All Might seemed in a rush to get out of there. Probably because class was going to start back up again soon. I walked back towards the lunch table, seeing my friends were still there. I took a seat. What happened, Midoriya? What did All Might tell you? You were there for quite some time. Almost the whole lunch PRD. Ida inquired, fixing his glasses and gazing at me. I shrugged, playing it cool. Oh, it was about the physical test scores, since I came in last. He was worried this class wasn't for me. But I told him I was going to work super hard to become a hero anyway. He's not going to make me change departments unless I start failing the hero course. I didn't realize that I could make a lie that was that good. Don't worry, Midoriya. I don't think you will fail the hero course. You are an amazing hero already. Uraraka cheered, lifting up her glass of water. A cheers to Izuku. I smiled brightly and lifted up my own glass with Ida, and we all made cheers in my name. Maybe this wasn't going to be bad after all. I take back what I said. This is going to be terrible. Why are me and Bakugo of all people going against each other? Chapter 7, Midoriya Izuku. I thought I was going to have a heart attack from how fast my heart hammered in my chest. All Might's words went in one ear and out the other as my legs turned to mush, and I had to concentrate just to stand upright. I couldn't do this. I can't go up against Kakin in a full-on battle. I don't even have a quirk. Well, will one for all work? If not, he'll destroy me and I'll look like a joke in front of everyone else, including my new friends. A warm hand on my shoulders snapped me out of my fears, and my head turned to see who it was, surprised to see the guy who sits next to me in the classroom. I think his name is Todoroki, but I haven't spoken to him much due to his ice-cold attitude, so this gesture surprised me. Why would such a distant person comfort me? And why is his hand so warm? I couldn't help a light blush that dusted over my cheeks and the tips of my ears, burning ever so slightly. I didn't dare move away from his hand. I rather liked the gesture actually. I wondered if this was the start of our friendship? Or maybe rivalry? Izuku, I'm your partner, we're the heroes in this simulation. He explained, lips near my ear so I could hear him clearly, before he moved away, his hand now far away from my shoulder. I felt like something was missing, and I involuntarily shivered at the chilliness left behind. I opened my lips to speak, but the words were stuck in my throat, so I nodded to show I understood him. I still had no idea if the quirk I was given would work or how to use it, and it wasn't like All Might could train me right now. I would have to make do with what I have for now. Relax, Izuku, if we work together, everything should be fine. This time his words sounded genuine instead of harsh or robot-like. Did he care about me? Or did he only care about his grade in the class? That was another thing I was worried about, letting my teammates down. I'm ridiculously clumsy and I'm afraid I'll trip over thin air and ruin everything. If this was a real battle, I'm sure that I would be the first to die. However, despite my paranoia, he was right and I knew he spoke the truth. The only way we were going to pass this exercise was to work together with what we have. I don't have a quirk, but I'm extremely good at dodging. I could probably stall for time by letting Kakin use me as his own personal punching bag that he can't wait to get his grubby hands on. Okay, I'm not good in combat so I can sneak in to get the weapon and you do the fighting? I suggested to him. Todoroki's expression didn't change, but in his eyes I could tell he was debating something, thinking deeply. Your old friend seems unstable, reckless, and adrenaline-driven. He may try to attack us directly as he has no patience to protect the weapon. Idia will be protecting the weapon. He seems wise and he may have traps set up or quick to respond. I think the best course of action is to not engage in battle unless we must. Otherwise, we should sneak through the building, then split up. You can buy me enough time by distracting the reckless kid and I'll take care of the weapon. I have to admit his strategy was flawless, taking the actions and personalities of our opponents into account. It might just work if Kakin didn't decide to kill me first. Alright, I'll do my best. My hand curled into a fist at my side, my fingernails digging into my hand. I could do it. I just needed self-confidence and the power of belief. I glanced over to see All Might, who winked at me and gave me a thumbs up. My stomach churned, even All Might believed I could do it. I gulped and took a deep breath of air, bracing myself for the buzzer. The buzz rang throughout the air and echoed in my ears as I followed right behind Todoroki, running into the building. Our footsteps could probably be heard from the floor above us, but we didn't care. We needed to get in and out as quickly as possible, and engage only when we needed to. Todoroki gave me a hand signal when we got to a split path. Now was my chance to find Bakugo and distract him while my partner went to find the weapon. I ran down the next hallway, this time trying to sneak around the best I could. I not make much noise, but I was sure Kakin could still find me. It was only a matter of, Deku, prepare to die, you the useless beach. Of course, there he was, blonde hair standing up on end, his red eyes consumed with rage, his brows narrowed. That stupid evil smirk on his face as he held up his hands, with some kind of grenade costume. I assumed it was to improve upon his explosions. He rushed at me, and my eyes seemed to trace him in slow motion. He was doing what he always does, he's right arm dominated after all. I've seen this move from him multiple times. I grabbed his arm, flipping him over me and onto his back. I then took off, my legs carrying me as fast as they could, ensnaring him into a wild game of chase. As long as I could keep his attention on me and away from my partner, Todoroki would have a chance. Kaken was tailing me, his explosions propelling him closer and closer to me. I wasn't going to make it, so I ceased running and ducked as he flew past me and into a wall. At least I could use momentum to my advantage. He got up, shaking it off, and stepped towards me, a grin on his face. End of the line, Deku. This time he rushed at me, jumped over me, and while in the air, ignited his explosion. I felt the heat just milliseconds before I flew through the air and into a wall. I winced, the pain bearable, but not pleasant. He took his chance while I was down to punch me, growling curses under his breath. He kept me from standing up, kicking me, using more explosions. Of course, I ended up as his punching bag. I concentrated, trying to find the power that was given to me. Immediately I felt a rush of power, and I pushed it into my leg. I took a swing at him, trying to use one for all. I kicked him straight in the gut and he was sent flying backward through 2 walls. I did that? Seriously? I tried to stand up, but I realized my leg was extremely hurt and white-hot pain shot up my leg. I couldn't stand. I had no idea what one for all could do yet. I was so inexperienced I hurt myself. Kaken was getting up, groaning, his eyes wide as he stared at me for a moment. Then they hardened in rage. You little fucker. How the f did you do that? What the hell was that? He growled, stomping over to me and gripped my chin with his hand. I struggled, but I was weak after hurting myself. He stared into my eyes and I closed mine, moving my fist. In my mind, I was all might, facing one of the most powerful villains, and I was in a crunch. I remembered his favorite move that creates a strong blast of wind. If I used that on him, it would give Todoroki enough time to get the weapon and might just save my life. I clenched my fist and concentrated. Smash! I yelled out, punching into the air. A strong wave of wind generated and blew him away, through the walls of the building. Oh well for the destructive part. I remember a whistle being blown and someone announcing that my team had won. Todoroki was able to reach the weapon in time. I collapsed on the ground as the world spun. Then the blackness swallowed me and I lost consciousness. Chapter 8, Todoroki Shoto. I'm glad he was safe. I know, I surprised myself too. I've grown used to not caring about others, or giving and receiving comfort, but the curly, green-haired kid has sparked something in me I cannot describe. Seriously, I'm awful with emotions of any kind. Other than some mild anger, sadness, and the occasional happy moments I can spare. Izuku's eyes shine brighter than the stars themselves, and he's full of such innocence and wonder it's hard not to admire him at least somewhat. I've found myself thinking about him even when I'm not supposed to, and that's even scarier for me. I didn't attend UA so I could make friends, though some would argue it's impossible not to make friends. I enrolled at the academy to prove my father wrong. I find that Izuku's quirk is strange. He has a lot of power, yet no control. Which is weird for any student. It's like it's brand new, and he wields it so awkwardly that he's clearly like never used it before. He's got a lot of work to do if he's ever going to become a pro. I honestly don't even know why he had been accepted by UA. He's inexperienced, and eventually, that quirk of his is going to be massive trouble. I lied. I know exactly why the school let him into Class 1A. Just smart. Very much so. His mind seems to work strategically. And he's got the heart and soul of what it really means to be a hero. He's even good with other people, and I have to admit there's so much potential just waiting to be revealed. And then, I'm hit with an idea. He obviously needs quirk training that none of the rest of us need. I'm wondering if I could help him, as we seem to be a good team during that last battle. Our thinking minds are quite alike, and I suppose it could help me get to know him better. Maybe I just want a friend, someone to confide in and tell them about all my struggles at home. Someone that I can be around that won't judge me as my family does. Someone who accepts me for who I am and doesn't leave. I'm not very good at being friendly, but it's worth a try. My life has always been lonely, but now more so than ever. I miss my mother. Something else bothers me though. I need to look more into it, but it's strange that All Might always seems to be watching Midoriya very closely. There's something about his expression, a distant glint hidden in his eyes that makes me think that I don't have the full story between those two. So it's a possibility that I really want to team up with Izuku in order to discover the truth between him and All Might. I walked to the nurse, and as it turns out, Midoriya was already awake and smiling as usual. All Might stood off to the side, but they were having a conversation. It stopped as soon as I had entered the room. I had no idea what was said, but this furthered my suspicions. My apologies, but I came to check in with my classmate and see if he was all right. I clearly stated my business, back to my usual cold and former self. Nothing more than regular concern for a classmate's safety and health. All Might immediately went into teacher mode and thanked me for being such a responsible and nice teammate. I took his compliments politely with respect, as I still admired him. He was our teacher, but he was also still the greatest hero, the symbol of peace. While I was there, Midoriya asked if he was ready to leave, and the nurse told him it was all right. I followed him out the door. We walked down the hallway together in complete silence. I was hesitant to reveal my true intentions, and he seemed as if he wanted to say something to me, but never did. So finally I stood in front of him to stop him. "I wanted to speak with you," I stated simply. My eyes narrowed as I focused on his bright green eyes. "I've observed that your use of your quirk is reckless, and you have no control. You win battles based on strategy and forward thinking. That won't get you very far in the real world. You must prepare for the worst. It's like your quirk is new, you've never used it before. Now, I won't question it for now. But I don't want to see someone with potential drop UA's hero course because he's never had proper training. Allow me to work with you." His expressions changed throughout my small speech. From embarrassment, to determination, to frightened, like I had come close to discovering something secret, and finally curiosity. All my years being quiet and cold have allowed me to judge subtle things, like emotions through expressions and subtleties. But finally, after processing, he spoke. "Wow, I can't believe you're offering me help. You're able to determine all that about me so quickly?" That surprised Midoriya as well. I mean, it made sense, most people would be. "You're amazing. No wonder you got in on recommendations." "Thank you, Todoroki. I accept your offer. I appreciate it very much." There were tears of happiness in his green eyes. We met after school. I snuck out of my father's house and took the bus and walked, not caring about the consequences of sneaking out. He could himself if he thought I wanted to be around him. Midoriya had told me about his favorite training place, a place called Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. I'm not entirely sure why he chose that spot, but it shouldn't be hard to find. I heard it was covered in trash. Only when I arrived, all the trash had been cleaned up, and it was once again a spot for recreation. "Todoroki!" A familiar voice called out to me from not too far. I turned around to find my green-haired classmate running towards me. "Thanks for meeting me here. I was hoping you could give me some pointers on how to use my quirk." He caught up to me, standing a few feet away. He closed his fists tightly and gave me the most determined look I've ever seen. He really was going to take this seriously. Good, because I didn't feel like holding back around him. Of course, the first thing you need to learn is how important it is to use your quirk like it's a part of you. I've become so accustomed to my power I can use it like breathing. I breathed out a cold, icy breath that chilled the air around us. You need to get used to the way it feels. I paused, thinking for a moment before I gave him instructions. Close your eyes. Power up your quirk. Now, don't use it. No punches, no wind, just focus on the way it feels and hold it there. I watched closely, but something was still wrong. He powered it up, I could tell by the light glowing off of his arm. And yet, it was just his arm. Like he was holding back, only using it in one spot. When I use my ice, it's not my hand, it's my whole right side of my body. And if I were to use both at the same time, it would be my whole body working with my quirk. I wasn't sure if he would understand, but it was worth a try. Midoriya, stop. Release without using it, use control to back down. He followed that and opened his eyes to stare at me. Quirks are a part of our whole bodies. I spoke and then I moved, My arm and leg in sync as ice spread across my own body and then on the ground towards the green-eyed boy in front of me before stopping and melting with a slight but careful use of heat. You can't only focus your power in your arm. It's why you hurt your leg and arm very badly during the battle. My hypothesis is that you will continue to badly injure your limbs and fingers every time you use your powers like that. If you want to focus power in a specific place, do so for special attacks, and use control as to not be injured. He took it all in, staring at his hand instead of looking at me. I could see the wheels turning in that head of his. He was a very smart boy. Our minds worked similarly, and I could tell once he'd connected the dots. Then Izuku turned towards me with wide eyes as he realized something and understood. Thank you so much, Todoroki. I have to try something now. He closed his eyes, concentrating before I saw the glow of his power all over his entire body. It wasn't as bright, he was using less power, but it was a part of his whole body now, not just a small part. I was proud of him. Izuku Midoriya has so much potential, as a hero, and as a friend. I understand why All Might would be interested in him. Chapter 9. Izuku Midoriya. I was surprised when Todoroki, a classmate leagues above me, offered me quirk help. Not only that, but I didn't know him very well. We had just met, and yet he had watched me and my quirk during our battle and decided to help. He had seemed like such a cold person that it seemed out of character. The more I thought about it, the more I realized he probably needed a friend. People like him have such strong, impenetrable walls that they end up being rather lonely. That made my heart throb in my chest. The poor guy likely just needed a friend. And so, even though he would be helping me, I was going to try to help him by befriending him. After all, we sat next to each other in class. I told him about my favorite place to train, the beach that I had ended up cleaning on my own while working towards my strength training to get into UA. We came up with a good time in the evening for both of us to meet up, and so, when I went for my evening workout, I saw his familiar white and red hair. Todoroki! I waved to him, running over. He turned around and gazed at me, but didn't say anything, seemingly being rather cold once again. I supposed his personality matched his quirk. So, I broke the silence for him. Thanks for meeting me here. I was hoping you could give me some pointers on how to use my quirk. I thanked him, honestly grateful that someone aside from All Might was willing to help. He gave me instructions, saying my first lesson was to learn how to use my quirk as easily as breathing, and I had to get used to the way it felt. I closed my eyes, feeling the rush of energy in my arm as I imagined using one for all like All Might and his giant smashes that generate so much DMN power. I held it, just feeling it, but it was kinda hard to connect fully. After all, this power was brand new. I had no idea how to use it, and All Might hadn't given a bunch of instruction. Todoroki stopped me, as we both silently agreed that something was wrong. I still wasn't getting it, and just practicing that was not going to be successful or helpful in any manner. Quirks are a part of our whole bodies. He moved, and then I noticed it. His quirk moved with him, and his ice spread across the ground, heading straight towards me before it stopped with precision. He had skills. This must be exactly why he had gotten into UA, the top hero school, by recommendation. You can't only focus your power in your arm. It's why you hurt your leg and arm very badly during the battle. He made a very good point. It was this statement that got my head turning. All Might never seemed to focus power in one place. His whole body was powered up in that huge form of his, and it was clearly connected very closely to his power. It's how he's able to deliver punch after punch so fast without any concentration or recharge time, unlike me. Todoroki moved like his whole body was a part of the ice, and now that he mentioned it, even Kaken body whole body worked with his quirk, his maneuvering in the air, in positions, in explosions. Everyone's quirk was a part of their body, and like a baseball player throws a pitch with his whole body force, quirks use the whole body to work properly. I gazed at Todoroki with my sudden realization that he had helped me to achieve. I shut my eyes tightly, concentrating on pulling one for all into my whole body instead of just my arm and holding it. This felt completely different. I felt more connected with the power on a level I didn't reach during the battle with Kaken. I felt more energized, powerful. It worked. Could hold it, sort of. As soon as I lost concentration, the power disappeared. Well, It seemed I had something to train after all. Thanks so much for everything. I told my new friend, waving to him as I ran across the beach to return home. I must tell All Might as soon as possible. All Might never replied to my text or phone call. Oh well, he was probably busy last night, so I didn't blame him. Luckily, I ran into him before class started in the hallway. Oh sorry. I didn't see All Might. He gazed at me and gestured for me to follow him. Good morning, young Midoriya. Sorry I wasn't able to speak with you yesterday. What happened between you and young Todoroki? The number one hero that I admired wasn't in his hero form, probably why he had to lead me into a staff room instead. Also, it was easier to talk about One for All in a private area. Well, he offered me some quirk training. I think he couldn't handle seeing me get hurt like that. After all, it was my first time in a battle with One for All. So, we went to the beach and he helped me come to a realization. One for All, I have to use it like everyone uses their natural quirk, with my whole body, instead of focusing all power into one area. I was excited about this, so naturally I spoke quickly, hoping he would be able to keep up with me. Did he find out or ask you about One for All? Of course, All Might was trying to protect his secrets, but I would never tell anyone. I silently wondered if Bakugo would figure it out on his own since I had never had a quirk the whole time he had known me. No. He did say it was a strange quirk but never asked me more. I won't tell him, I swear. I promised him again I was serious. Only, I think we should be more worried about Kaken. He's known me since we were kids. He's going to be the most suspicious. And despite his anger issues and bad mouth, he's not dumb. I admire him really. He's going to become an amazing hero one day. I smiled. Kaken? Oops, I guess I hadn't really mentioned my nickname for him before. I mean Bakugo, that's my nickname for him. Just like he calls me Deku. I blushed, embarrassed as I gazed away from All Might. Well, regardless, I'm glad nobody has found out, and you have kept your word. It's time for me to tell you more about One for All, and my history. I know, I rushed this whole quirk thing onto you so fast. I'm sorry. I had been excited to find you to be a worthy successor after seeing your heroic actions at the entrance exam, and I threw everything at you very quickly. Please, have a seat, young Midoriya. We have a few things to discuss. I slowly took my seat on the couch, and All Might sat in front of me in a chair, pouring tea and setting it on the table in front of us. I was ready to hear what he had to say. He was right. I never had much information about the power he had given to me or how it worked. One for All is a crystallization or a combination of all the heroes who have used it before you. It can be passed on through the generations to keep it from dying off when a hero is going to retire or die. I, much like you, was actually quirkless before One for All was passed to me through my predecessor. Luckily, it can only be transferred willingly, so One for All can't be stolen from you. It was created two brothers, one who can steal quirks and give them to others, and the other brother who could pass his quirk down, only it was powerless. The older brother gave the younger brother a power that could stockpile and store energy over time, and that combined with the ability to pass it on whoever he wanted, is the creation of One for All. I listened carefully to his tale, taking all the information I could in. It was a lot, but this made a lot more sense to me now that I had experienced the power. It was rather too powerful for my body to handle, one, because it was new, and two, because it had All Might's strength as well as everyone before him into one quirk. That makes more sense, thank you. But I still can't believe you were quirkless like me. Whoa. It was insane. The greatest hero ever had once been quirkless as a kid. To be frank with you, kid, I saw some of myself in you. Back when I was your age, and One for All was a new power for me. All Might chuckled, leaning back into the chair with his cup of tea. He sipped on it for a moment. Maybe that's why I chose you. You just reminded me of myself, with the same overzealous, hardworking spirit of a hero. I honestly believe you'll do great things. He'd gotten slightly emotional there, revealing a bit of his deeper feelings than I realized. Still, I found it sweet that All Might could relate to me. Who knew my favorite person in the whole world that I looked up to my whole life would actually like me. It was very flattering but also surreal at the same time. So, show me what you can do. All Might's tone had changed, like he was getting down to business. But I had originally left him a message saying I needed to talk to him and show him something new. Yes, sir, I said politely. I had actually worked on it a few times after Todoroki left last night. I stood up, moved my feet into the proper stance, and powered up one for all around my entire body, the green lighting sparking around me. I had to concentrate heavily to keep it on, so talking wasn't really possible. But I did catch a glimpse at All Might's face. He seemed both amazed and proud. You've got the right idea, but it looks like it's incredibly hard to maintain. You'll have to practice a lot more in order to get a hang of this new way. Once you can hold it for long enough, you'll need to start to be able to move and fight in that state. All Might nodded and then transformed into his hero form. Congratulations, young Midoriya. You finally have a starting line. Your classmates have had years practicing their quirks. You'll need to work twice as hard as them just to stay in line. Yes, sir. I told him seriously, but that broke my hold on One for All and the green light disappeared. I made two fists by my side as I looked up at my teacher and mentor. I won't let you down, All Might, sir. And with that, it was time for class. I left the room feeling more confident than ever about becoming a hero. I was now in the game, but it was a long way with many troubles than I would ever know to actually win. Chapter 10, Unknown. He strolled down the street, confidence in every step he took, head held high. Even as he passed pro-hero agencies, he knew that nobody would recognize him. He huffed out a breath, his blonde bangs moving out of his face. At least the heroes would see him as a regular citizen, a young teen of about 17. He could even pull the innocent kid move on them if they ever suspected a thing. Dumb pieces of shit. He was smart enough to get away with his evil acts in broad daylight, something most villains were too stupid to even consider. Evil didn't wait for the sky to grow dark. As he stepped past a dark alley, the hairs on the back of his neck stood up, and he moved out of the way as a shadow passed him, effectively missing him. He stayed calm. It was a villain he could handle easily, so much so it wasn't worth the effort to run or fight. He casually slipped his hands into his pockets and stepped into the shadows of the alley. So, you thought you could kidnap me, Kurogiri? Do you even know who I am? His jade green eyes focused on a dark smoky form of a man, and he gave him a look, tilting his head to silently say, "Really, you dumb F-dash?" Otherwise, he was relaxed, if only slightly annoyed. Kurogiri understood how underpowered he was compared to the teen, and he didn't try any more tricks. My apologies, Ketsueki. I wanted to make this as quick as possible. But, it seems your quirk is as good as the rumors say. Or should I call you the one-shot killer, Bullseye? The blonde teen, now recognized by both his real name and his villain name, was somewhat impressed. You did your research. My name isn't public knowledge. As far as the government is concerned, I'm a poor, quirkless orphan. He chuckled. I'll give the League some credit. Ketsueki thought about something for a moment, weighing his choices on his mind. I'll come with you willingly. But if I don't like what your so-called leader has in store for me, I'm leaving. Kurogiri would take that as a yes, and opened his warp gate to the League of Villains hideout. After all, his partner, Shigaraki, had a proposal for him. Ketsueki stepped through the portal and surveyed his new surroundings. He was in an old-fashioned bar, with wood tables and brick walls. There was a TV, which seemed to be on the news at the moment, with a voice channel in the top right corner of the screen. And sitting at the bar was a young man with messy blue hair, and hands covering his neck and face. Shigaraki, it's nice to meet you. Though you and the League are a bit low level for me. This offer better be something important. Ketsueki gave the blue-haired man a smirk. He wasn't using his quirk to his advantage right now, but he could. Shigaraki stood up, somehow able to see the other male through the fingers of the hands sprawled across his face. Ah yes, Bullseye. Now, we do have something special for you. These aren't my orders, they come directly from the top. He turned to face the TV. Master, we have Bullseye with us. A deep voice, familiar to Ketsueki, spoke. But we have a job for you. We need you to gather information on All Might. Your stealth, accuracy, and amazing quirk make you the perfect teen for this job. Ketsueki was silent. He had a lot of missions from other villains, asking him to kill others as the perfect assassin. He got paid a good sum of money, and it earned him a lot of fame. However, this man asking him was the villain of all villains, and much more powerful than him. Saying no to this man would be like saying no to the head of the mafia, nearly impossible to do. Spy on All Might? May I ask what for? We want to see if he's losing his power if he's at his limit. It would be best to attack him in a weaker state and win. I need you to gather that information. He hesitated. As much as he probably should take the mission, he wasn't interested in just spying. If All Might was as weak as they suspected, he would rather fight him. With his quirk, Kitsueki was nearly confident he could beat the #1 hero. He had practiced for years to perfect his quirk in combat, and maybe he would spy on him and disobey rank by fighting him at his lowest. Alright, I'll do it, but I better be getting paid for this, all for one. Yes, Kitsueki. I'll pay you. Now, you'll need to sneak into UA. Kurogyri will help you, and you'll use your quirk and stealth to gather information. That was the last of the orders. Kitsueki smashed a fist on the counter. He would do it, but like the teen rebel he was going to try his hand at defeating All Might, whatever it took. Kitsueki didn't have anything against the #1 hero, no personal grudge, no oath of honor to kill him. Nothing. But he wanted to be at the top of villains. Whoever managed to take out as many top pro heroes could earn that title. And if you could defeat All Might, you were guaranteed the top spot, above All for One. With his skills and powerful quirk, he could likely get rid of many pro heroes as he already had, but until now he'd never aimed for the top. Now his eyes were focused on the finish line. Kurogyri, take me to UA. He ordered, and a portal opened for him. It was time to start his stealth mission, not just for another villain, but for himself. Midoriya Izuku. Do we want to train again tonight? I ask, turning to the side to face Todoroki. I can understand if you're busy. It must be hard being the son of a huge pro hero. I can imagine he'd be gone often. My eyes go unfocused as I wonder what his life must be like. I had never been very close to pro heroes before All Might. In his classic fashion, he didn't look at me, his eyes focused straight ahead as he paid attention to the English teaching that Eraserhead was doing in the front. He answered in a cold fashion, face not showing any emotion. He hid his feelings so well it was hard to empathize with him or read his expressions. Yeah, it's hard. He paused to answer my first question. We can train tonight. You may have discovered something important yesterday, but you'll need a lot of work. I'd suggest setting aside a few hours to focus solely on your power. I agreed this was going to be hard and I had to work double. At least I had a friend, someone who could protect me from Bakugo's bullying. Understood. I think we should meet at the same place. Would the same time be alright? Todoroki was about to answer. His mouth opened when Eraserhead turned around, his eyes red as he stared straight at me. Midoriya, pay attention. Now's not time talking to classmates, that's what break is for. I nodded, my eyes widening as I apologized to him. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. I went silent and began to pay attention as he continued with the lesson. Honestly, I had no interest in the normal lessons, despite them being just as important as the hero work. I understood that aspect, but it was still boring. Honestly, I was thankful I got into UA, all without a quirk. I still wonder why All Might chose me. And suddenly, I get a weird feeling my bones, sending a shiver down my spine. Something was wrong. I was being watched. I turned around to find, well, nothing unusual. Everyone behind me was too focused or daydreaming to notice. The weird feeling got stronger with every second that ticked by, and the hairs stood up on the back of my neck as I kept nervously glancing around the room. And finally my eyes fixated at the window, but there was nothing outside that I could see. I stood up to investigate further when, I am here. All Might's very familiar voice rang out, interrupting my thoughts and my actions. I turned my head to see the #1 hero, taking the place of Eraserhead. It's time for today's hero training. I took my seat, but somehow the feeling never disappeared. I wondered if All Might could be in trouble. Something lurked under our noses, I could feel it. Chapter 11, Midoriya Izuku. It's been a week since Todoroki and I first started training together. I can't believe how fast time flies. I felt as if I needed to somehow repay him for his help. I've grown a lot. One for all no longer seems to hurt me. Well, it does if I concentrate it all into one area, but I try not to do that. Instead, I've been working on only 5% throughout my whole body. I call it one for all, full cowling. I can now fight with one for all's power flowing through me. The real challenge is keeping it after I get hit, as it temporarily distracts me and I lose control. We decided that every training session, I need to hold the power for as long as possible, each day increasing the minutes by 2. When I spotted my friend, I conjured up the power, and he started the timer for now 14 minutes. This was getting easier and easier every time we practiced, and so was the combat part of my training. You're not tired as quickly, and this is starting to become second nature for you. I must say, I'm impressed by your ability to learn quickly. Todoroki watched me with softer eyes than normal. There are moments where I'm actually able to read his expressions. He was starting to let his guard down around me, I could tell. I hoped he saw me as a friend. I had been working hard to befriend him, and today I had a surprise for him. Despite my mother's worries, I had made quite a few friends in the past 2 weeks I had been at Uraraka, Ida, Tsu, and Todoroki among those. Ever since I defeated him in training, Kaken had been more reserved around me, and he acted out less since All Might discouraged bullying. I wondered if he was alright. He probably thought I'd betrayed him this whole time by hiding a quirk. I wished I could tell him, but I couldn't harm the number one hero by spilling his secret. Time's up. Todoroki snapped me out of my thoughts, and I released full cowling, sweating only slightly. It's time for combat. As usual, you really need to guard your openings better. Never allow anyone to get to your weakest points. And since you prefer close combat, always protect the face. I would recommend you try to use both your arms and legs equally and create specialized moves that you can use against your opponent. Name them to keep track of each specific movement. I nodded and understood why those recommendations were important for me to master. These were basic combat skills. Even though I managed to hold my ground against Bakugo for a few minutes, I must get much better before there are more one-on-one fights with other students or even villains. Before I could answer, ice spread across the ground faster than I expected, threatening to freeze my feet in place. I was barely able to dodge, my feet leaving the ground before I had even realized it, the familiar glow of full cowling around me. My eyes focused on Todoroki. He was quick and didn't give me a chance to get near him. As soon as the tips of my feet touched down, his ice was quickly moving towards me. This time, I jumped over it and forward, trying to get in close. Unfortunately, I forgot how good the white and red-headed male was at his quirk, and my ankles started to feel cold, the ice creeping around them. At the last second, I threw a punch, expelling some energy into wind, only 5%, but enough to break the ice and allow me to quickly speed behind him and send my first direct hit. I aimed a kick at his head, from his left side which he blocked with his left arm, but was still pushed away. I jumped back, but I stayed on his left side as much as possible. This was something I had learned over the week. Todoroki never used the other half of his quirk, only to melt his ice when he needed to, but never full on fire. I had never seen it. I found that weird, but he never asked me about my quirk, so I returned the favor and never asked about his. I only knew it was his weakness. He could still use his ice, but it was definitely harder to cross over from right to left, which slowed his attacks enough to dodge. He tried to turn multiple times and attacked, to shake me off his weaker side, but I was practicing what he had told me to do. And honestly, he seemed both proud that I was taking his combat advice to heart, but also very frustrated. Finally, he stopped attacking. "You're doing much better. Good job." And this was something rare, but Todoroki actually smiled. I had never seen him with a smile on his face. My heart fluttered in my chest. I was just so happy he was smiling. "Thank you." I flashed him the brightest and thankful smile I could. "Hey, Todoroki. I hope you don't mind, but I told my mom about training with you. Shida invited you over for dinner. So I hope you'd like to come over tonight? Just for a home-cooked meal. Please." It was my plan, but my mother was ecstatic when I told her. I felt I needed to thank him for his help somehow. He hesitated for a long moment, the smile on his face gone. He now looked more forlorn, but at least he wasn't super cold and emotionless. I could see a person now, not just a blank ice sculpture. Alright, I'll join you for dinner, Midoriya. He nodded but didn't smile. I wondered if I would ever get to see him smile again. Shoto Todoroki. I have no idea why I said yes to his request. I should have said no, that my father was already said enough at me for leaving every day. It was like my mouth spoke for me. Or maybe I really hadn't had a real family dinner or home-cooked meal in a very long time. When Midoriya spoke of his mother, I felt my heart break in my chest. I really missed my mother, despite everything that had happened. I love her, and I had never gone to visit after she left. I kinda wished that I could have a happy family, that my father would have been nicer to her. Everything in my life was just so messed up. Honestly, he was my friend now. I couldn't deny it, I had grown to think of him as a friend. He was someone I could trust, he was an amazing person to be around and even made me smile today. I was so proud of him. His combat skills and quirk are a lot better, he improves quickly. And he's learned how vulnerable my left side is. I do my best to make up for that in battle, any way I can, but he's learned. I dare say, helping him may be my downfall. He may just beat me for the top spot. Once I entered the apartment, I was so happy. It was nice and warm and smelled like freshly cooked food. I was greeted by an overly excited woman with her green hair in a bun. A bit embarrassed, I blushed and took a seat across the small table from Deku. The smell of the food alone was heavenly, and once I dug in, I didn't regret my decision to come over at all. This was amazing. I closed my eyes and smiled, finally opening them to stare straight at Deku and his bright green eyes. Something in my stomach fluttered, and my heart squeezed in my chest as I quickly looked away. I couldn't believe it. I liked him, and I trusted him more than anyone in the entire class. Hell, more than anyone in the whole world. So, right then I swore I would tell him the truth after dinner. There was some light conversation with his mother, Inko, and I remembered all my manners. With a bit of questioning, I discovered that Izuku's father was gone, overseas on business, and never talked to them. I had some sympathy. If my father wasn't being mean to my mother, or forcing me to train, he was away on hero business. It was my siblings that ran the household more than my father. I only revealed what I felt was needed, stating simply that my father was the number 2 hero, Endeavor, and Izuku and I had met in UA's class of 1A. Once we were finished eating, I helped clean up, something that made both mother and son very thankful. I was their guest, but I figured it was best if we all helped out. And then it was time. Deku showed me his room, an NTMT moment for the two of us, but now I understood why he wanted to be a hero so badly. His room was absolutely covered in All Might, posters, merch, costumes. When I glanced over at him, his whole face was red, clearly embarrassed, but I didn't judge. I didn't ask any questions, but I took a seat in the chair by his desk. Look, Midoriya, I need to be honest with you. Sweat dripped down the back of my neck, but I controlled my emotions, forcing my eyes to go cold so I didn't reveal how nervous I was. My father and I are in a fight, and so I thank you for giving me the opportunity to run off every day and help you train. I took a deep breath and released my strong barriers. I could trust him. Have you ever heard of quirk marriages? Izuku watched my every movement, focused on my words, and he nodded. Yes, they became a huge problem in the beginning, like arranged marriages for specific quirk inheritance. Well, I was born of one. My father, the FING basically bought my mother. And of course, nobody can say no to the large amounts of money and influence he has as the second greatest hero. My father hated being in second place so much he wanted to create a superhero to surpass All Might. So he created me, and ever since I was born, and he knew my quirk was the perfect combination of fire and ice, he trained me. I paused. I was spilling my whole life story to him. I seriously hoped he wouldn't tell anyone. Endeavor has anger issues sometimes, and often took it out on my mother, who didn't love him very much. It led to my mom eventually pouring boiling water on my face, giving me a scar. This won't heal ever. I'll be marked with my father's arrogance and his power. I swore I would never use my fire in battle, and I won't. I want to prove to him I can be a hero while rejecting him and his quirk. There was the truth out there. I could never take it back now. Most of that, I stayed cold so he couldn't notice how I felt about it. However, now that it was out there, I released my hold and looked at the ground. The room was silent for several minutes as Izuku processed everything. I had no idea. Our lives are so different, and yet we still want to become heroes. He started, slowly as if gathering his thoughts. And I'm so sorry about your father and your mother. But, now that we're friends, you're always welcome over. My mom will happily feed you, and we can place you in the extra bedroom on a mat if you ever want to stay over. Izuku flashed me a smile. Think of this as your safe place. I won't ever judge you, and you can be free from your responsibilities and weight of being the son of the number 2 hero. That lifted my heart and my chest as I sighed, gazing at him with a small smile. Thank you so much, Midoriya. You're a great friend. I stood up. It was time I got going though. Unfortunately, I must go back tonight. But thank you for the offer. I'll remember it. I waved to him before leaving his house a few moments later, feeling so much better. I'd be able to face my father tonight. I just have to envision my new best friend and his beautiful green eyes of hope. Chapter 12, All Might. The moment I stepped foot in the USJ, an eerie feeling chilled my bones, creating a shiver that went down my spine. Luckily for me, the students' attentions were zeroed in on 13 and her explanation of the most important part of being a hero, saving people. In my time as a hero, I'd saved more people's lives than I can imagine, possibly even the whole world once or twice. I didn't brag that in front of anyone, especially when my nerves were on end. The usual smile stayed on my face, only my eyes betrayed my emotions. I believe Midoriya 100% today, even though when he told me yesterday about his suspicions, I dismissed him. I shouldn't have done that. I needed to take him seriously. His instincts were that of the son of the greatest hero. After class yesterday, a wide-eyed nervous Midoriya approached me, and he couldn't sit still. He fidgeted and looked around like they were being watched. He quickly stammered out the words that echoed in my very skull while standing in the hall of the All Might. I feel like we're being watched. There's a villain attack coming. It might be directed at you, and ever since you gave me one for all, I've noticed you're getting weaker. I think it's a bad idea for you to go on our field trip tomorrow. At first, I laughed and tried to quell his nerves with the usual, "You has the finest security of any hero school, my boy. You have nothing to worry about. Go home and get a good night's rest." Only, as soon as he left the room, my instincts told me he wasn't wrong. The kid, no, my son, was looking out for me. But if there truly was a villain attack coming, I decided at that moment to go anyway. I could protect as many of my students as possible. I let the other staff members know about the possibility of an attack, and so the school had extra pro heroes at the ready for an emergency. After all, who would say no to me as the number 1 hero about extra security? I'm thankful I listened to him, as mere minutes later a dark shadow-looking portal appeared not too far from where we stood. Villains, hundreds of low-level thugs it looked like, spilled into the USJ. They captured my attention as well as Eraserhead. We looked at each other, before racing out to meet them head-on. I needed to protect the kids. 13, lead the students back to the school, get pro heroes on the line. I ordered. I got 3 large strides before a familiar flash of green jumped in front of me, right near where my chest would be. A knife clattered to the floor as well as drops of blood. I stood frozen, my eyes taking in what had just happened. Midoriya. What the hell? Why would he risk his life for me? Doesn't he know I'm the greatest pro hero? I could have... The blood dripping from the gash in his arm didn't look too serious, but I realized what had just happened. There was a knife thrown, aimed specifically at my heart, to kill. He'd seen it and jumped in the way at the last second. How did he know? How did he see it when I didn't? Impossible. The whole thing happened so fast I barely had enough time to think. I moved before my mind, my hand grabbed his shirt, pulling him far behind me. You can't jump in front of me like that. Kid, go back to 13 now. I ordered him, hoping he'd follow my instructions, but being the reckless young kid he was, he shook his head. I won't let you and Eraser die. I want to help. He spoke the truth, I could tell by the look in his eyes, but as a teacher, and selfishly as his father, I couldn't let him. This was too risky for the kids, even for Midoriya and Todoroki to get involved. These villains knew where we were and sneaked in, and by the looks of it, trapped us in the USJ and jammed communications. No, go back to your class. Protect them. I paused. There had to be something I could say to him to get him to stay away from me. Protect your best friend, Todoroki. It did the trick. Something in the kid's green eyes changed. He backed away, entrusting me with my own safety. He ran over to Todoroki and his friends to care for them. Unbelievable. A new voice from my left spoke. Who's that kid? He's outmatched my quirk. You were supposed to be dead now. He saved you, All Might. I wonder why. He clicked his tongue, stepping out from the shadows. A teen. He had messy blonde hair and wore simple clothes, black jeans, and a plain white shirt. The only thing weird about him was his eyes. They were glowing a bright, electric blue color, likely from his quirk. He walked with his hands in his pockets. I moved quickly. This teen was a threat to my students and to their lives, clearly dangerous, with a malicious look in his eyes. One solid punch with my quirk was all it would take. Only he was gone, out of my line of vision, and from my side came a sneaker, along with the rest of a leg. The pain from my wound flared up. Not only had he hit me hard without me expecting it, he knew exactly where my weak point was. Only I had been guarding this. So, how the f did he get past me? I staggered back, coughing into my hand, knowing there was blood spilling out of my mouth. Well, it seems my information is correct. You are much slower. And much weaker. All for One is so above you I made it my job to defeat you. He doesn't have time to waste with an old retiree. The blonde teen chuckled, a calm grin on his face. I couldn't allow him the time to talk, but the fact that he mentioned All for One wasn't good. As much as I feared, I did not want All for One to return. I moved faster this time, pulling one for all whatever was still left inside me, and went in for another smash, this time creating wind that was sure to knock him. I felt a punch to my gut, another hard punch to my side with the wound, and a kick behind my head that nearly knocked me over. What the f dash? How was he faster than me? I couldn't land a single hit on him. Did he have a teleportation quirk? A speed one? I backed away, to gather my speed and thoughts. If he was fast, I had to be faster than him. Oh, poor All Might, getting beat to a pulp by a teen. How does that feel? He turned to stare straight at me with those insufferable, teasing blue eyes. Then I recognized him. It had taken me a moment, and in the heat of battle, I didn't focus on him as close as I should have. The one-shot killer, Bullseye. The picture of the blonde teen in a black mask with bright blue eyes flashed into my memory, as well as all the authorities' information on him and his known quirk. That's right, All Might. I have made a name for myself, it seems. I'm surprised it took you this effing long. Are the lights on upstairs? Hello, I'd like to speak to the greatest hero. Bulls, I laughed, his hands in his pockets as he casually walked around me. Oh, you've stopped attacking? You realized it's pointless to fight me. I won't miss a hit. Every one of my punches, stabs, kicks, shots, everything. Bulls, I took a seat, leaning back, simply watching me closely. Even the greatest hero can't beat me. Not when I can see your every move before you make it. Even so, I knew I couldn't give up on fighting him. Not when the children's lives were at stake. I moved, hopefully fast enough, making a kick for his head while he was sitting down. Bullseye had already moved, but I tracked his fast movements, aiming another smash. Yet he simply ducked under my arm, slid between my legs, and kicked, knocking me onto the floor. I hopped up onto my feet, aiming a faster-than-human flurry of punches at him, but he simply dodged each one, moving side to side, twisting his feet and spinning behind me. Bullseye smirked straight at me, his hands in his pockets. Because I look up to you as the greatest hero, I'll let you in on a secret. My quirk, all-seeing eye. He sat back down on the floor, crossing his legs. He pointed to his right eye. I can see into the future with this eye. Of course, it's a quirk, it has limits. And, he pointed to his left eye. This eye has perfect aim. I never miss an opening or target. It helps me accurately track movements. He tilted his head to the side. It comes useful in battle, or for stealth missions, or for assassinations. Bullseye shrugged but paused as his vision left me, and focused on Todoroki and Midoriya. I didn't see him coming to protect you as part of the future. He's fast. As much as you. Well, actually both of them are fast. Look at their fighting. I turned to see Midoriya and Todoroki, working together close to the shipwreck zone to protect each other, while defeating villains. They had developed a sense of camaraderie, and fought with each other's quirks in sync. I couldn't believe how fast my son was leveling up in a sense. I felt pride fill in my chest. He's important to you. I don't know why, but you're protecting him, while at the same time he's trying to protect you. How sickeningly sweet. Bullseye laughed, and then his smile fell as he inspected me carefully. I wonder. A look of curiosity flashed in those blue eyes. Dread filled the pit of my stomach, turning my muscles to lead. Did he know? No, impossible. It was my best-kept secret, and I hadn't given it away by protecting him, did I? Couldn't this villain write off me protecting him as the next generation of heroes, a successor of mine? Not family. The next words out of the villain's mouth froze me completely, unable to fight, to move. That green-haired kid, he looks like that woman seen with you after you saved her from Stain. The one you stopped seeing after the press released a story about a possible romance. You were never seen with her again. Could he be? Bullseye erupted into a fit of maniac laughter, watching my reaction and my eyes. He figured it out. I had no idea how he wasn't even old enough to be born for that. He must have done his research on me. He's your son. Oh, that's the best twist I've ever heard of. I can't believe nobody's figured it out. I had to fight. I had to get him from releasing this to the villains, or we were all in trouble. I forced myself to move, but I wasn't fast enough, not with the fear in my limbs. Bullseye simply moved out of the way and pulled something out from his belt. Another knife. He was fast, but his eyes were fixed on Izuku. No, I couldn't let him kill my son. My body moved with the power of one for all, as fast as I could, my top strength. I jumped in the way as he did for me not more than a few minutes before. The knife lodged in my side, the same side as my wound, and I fell to the ground. All Might. My son, rushing over to my side. The villain, laughing. The pain. Unbearable. My vision swarmed in and out, and I struggled to get to my feet. I couldn't be defeated here. I was stronger than this. Bullseye just so happened to figure out my weakness. Oh, don't worry, All Might. Your secret is safe with me. Bullseye's voice right near my ear, before he backed away. Toodles. He chuckled, sauntering off with his newfound information. He was getting away. I groaned, but I knew I couldn't move fast enough to catch him. A flash of green light and the villain was barely able to dodge. My son. Chapter 13. Midoriya Izuku. Today we'll be discussing the proper techniques necessary for a safe rescue. It's important to remember that, as much as I loved meeting new heroes like 13, my nerves prohibited me from focusing on the lesson at hand. The hairs on the back of my neck stood at attention, and I kept gazing around, shifting from one foot to the other, and my hands played with the end of my shirt. I nearly jumped when a warm hand rested on my shoulder. I turned to see a familiar scarred face, his heterochromic eyes I admired staring into my own. Even here he made me feel warm, so warm. Deku, try to relax. He told me in his gentle, caring voice. Hearing him say my nickname like that helped calm me down a bit. Only, I couldn't stop my body from shaking as the feeling built up. Then I felt warm fingers brush mine, and before I could say no, our hands were intertwined together, trying to stop the shaking. Todoroki and I had become closer, but this made my face burn all the way to my ears, and I pulled my hand back against my will. I really wanted to hold his hand, but not here, not now. A dark swirling shadow caught my attention as well as everyone else's, a portal. And villains, dozens and dozens of them. I stood up, my body rigid. Why didn't All Might believe me? I knew this was coming even if I couldn't explain it. As if naturally, my eyes focused on All Might, who already rushed into hero mode along with Eraserhead. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a glint, a flash of reflected light. In the shadows, just out of All Might's line of vision was someone. I couldn't see them, but the glint of light looked like. I had no time to think. One for all followed through my veins and I leaped away from Todoroki, my legs and power taking me there in just the nick of time. I was able to stop the knife's trajectory. There was a stinging pain on my arm as the knife clattered to the ground. I winced, but before I could assess the damage done to me, All Might pulled me behind him. He yelled at me, forcing me back. I did not want to leave his side, not when he was in danger. When All Might brought up Todoroki, I hesitated. He had a point. I needed to trust him as my teacher and as a pro hero. My classmates needed me to protect them. So I rushed back to my friend, standing at his side. "Deku, you're bleeding." The rip of fabric filled my ears, and before I could protest that my wound wasn't serious, a piece of his shirt was wrapped around my arm tightly and tied off. It would stop the bleeding and I would still be able to fight. I gazed at Todoroki, silently thanking him for the help, especially as we didn't have the time to speak to each other. We both knew that protecting our classmates from the villains that crawled up the stairs was more important. Since we had been sparring together for the past few weeks, we'd learned to work with our quirks together. So each time a villain came up the stairs, we had each other's backs. I would go in for a punch or kick, and Todoroki would back me up with his ice. Ever since he revealed to me why he's so sensitive about his quirk, I understood that he likely wouldn't use his fire. And yet there's a part of me that wants to change his mind. I don't think that he should not use or fear his other part of his quirk just because of his JRK but father. It's not right, considering it's his own quirk. He could make it his own, instead of copying his father. Although, now wasn't the time to change his mind. I would attempt to do so at a later date, perhaps at another one of our training nights. Most of the villains that attacked us seemed to be basic lower-level thugs. There was nobody I recognized. A quick survey of the area helped me gain a better understanding of the most dangerous villains. All Might was fighting a blonde teen and losing, definitely a powerful villain. The Portal Man, who had spread some of their classmates to the zones around the USJ, he was dangerous. As well as the blue-haired handsy man that Eraserhead was near. I had faith the rest of our classmates were strong enough to handle the villains, just like Todoroki, and I quickly finished them off. I happened to be more worried about All Might than anyone else. The blonde teen was likely the attacker of the knife, the one I saved him from. And from my brief glances at their fight, he seemed to have some sort of sight quirk that allowed him to dodge and aim really well, so well that he'd move out of the way of all of the number one hero's attacks. Only I saw another knife, this time it was aimed at me, but All Might jumped in the way. Right in his side he was wounded in. There was a grunt of pain and a crash as he fell to the floor. All Might. I rushed over as quickly as I could with my quirk. It was my time to fight this villain, for my favorite teacher and hero, as well as for my friends, like Todoroki. He wouldn't have a chance to escape. I would try to keep him here until the other pro-heroes arrived. "Todoroki, protect All Might," I told him quickly before rushing after the villain, one for all flowing through my veins as I aimed a smash straight for his jaw. For the first time in the entire fight, Bullseye had been hit. Although, I knew that was nowhere near the end of our battle. This villain, I'd seen him before on TV, and his known quirk flashed through my eyes. He did, in fact, have a perfect aim quirk. Bullseye backed away slightly, still on his feet, although rubbing his jaw. I couldn't let him use his quirk, keep him distracted enough to not focus on me. Instead of fighting him, I paced back and forth, zigzagging around him in random patterns, hoping to confuse his aim, especially by mixing up my speed as well as direction. Bullseye simply laughed, shaking his head. "Nice try, kid. But there's more to my quirk than aim." And out of nowhere, there was a punch to my side, and then again to my back and again to my stomach. He was fast, like he knew exactly where I was going to be despite my weird and confusing pattern of movement. I doubled over, coughing and in pain, but my brain was working overtime, and his statement was correct. Even through my strategy, he knew where I would be located. Therefore, not only could he aim perfectly, he could see into the future. But all quirks have a limit, and he likely couldn't see farther than a few minutes at the most, if that. Due to the unpredictability of nature and the laws of the quantum world, I knew that the farther he tried to see into the future, the more inaccurate his calculations would be. Even if you can see into the future, you can't be accurate 100% of the time. We change the future by acting in the present with our choices. Bullseye watched me carefully. He seemed quite impressed with my knowledge, even though I just happened to be a nerd, especially about quirks and strategy. Very good kid, honestly, you impress me. He chuckled but shook his head. I guess I can't expect anything less than the son of the #1 hero. What? Why did he think I was? Oh, maybe it was because I saved him earlier, and then jumped in to help him again. Only, that happened to be more because he was my teacher, and I admired him so much as a hero. I'm not All Might's son. I just care for him as my teacher. He simply laughed. No, you're his son, you should talk to him. He'll give you all the juicy details I don't know. When this attack is all over, have a nice father-to-son chat. Bullseye winked. And then his eyes moved. Before I had the time to move, he was already near Todoroki, dodging each ice attack, gaining ground. Use your fire. I shouted. If Bullseye got too close, burning him would certainly get him to back off. But Todoroki hesitated, and instead of seeing the flames I wanted to, Bullseye attacked him relentlessly. I had to help him, the green sparks of my quirk activating around my body as I raced to the side of the villain and tackled him, rolling with him on the ground. It was the only thing I could think of that would give Todoroki the time he needed to recover. I went to punch Bullseye with more than my usual amount of one for all, but he had disappeared from underneath me, already close to Todoroki again. He seemed to attack him like he knew that I... Oh shit. He recognized our close relationship, most likely how we worked in sync with our quirks earlier. And he was using this against us. With no teacher available to help, we were on our own for this battle. It was then I realized the real evil that All Might and other pros have to face on a daily basis. The people who could find society's weakness and exploit it to their will. Todoroki and I met eye contact, and I screamed at him. Please use your fire. I made it as emotional as I could, tears in my eyes. If he wanted to win this battle and survive another day with me, he had to use his fire. And yet he didn't, which led to the scene that stopped my heart. A knife pressed against Todoroki's neck, as the blonde villain smirked at me with that glint in his bright blue eyes. So, Midoriya, what are you going to do? I want to know. He giggled. It'll be fun to see. Heroes always make the weirdest choices for love. It's clear you care deeply for this boy. I felt frozen and held my breath, no idea what to do. I couldn't let him die, one slip up and I knew that he wouldn't miss. For a villain who had killed heroes before, I knew he wasn't below killing kids that would turn out to be powerful heroes in the future. The fear in Todoroki's eyes proved that even he knew that his life could be over in a matter of seconds. And it was then I knew how we could beat this villain. If he could see the future, we better sure as hell make sure the future was as unpredictable as possible. We locked eyes and I nodded. All right, Bullseye, you win. We surrender. I slowly raised my hands up, to show him I would no longer be making any moves. I got down on my knees, knowing a sign of SBMSN he could recognize quickly. Todoroki nodded to the villain. We give up, we'll let you escape. Bullseye seemed hesitant like he felt this was a trick, but after a moment he moved the knife slowly away, and then right back to his neck. Sorry kids, but neither of you can trick me like this. I can see dash. Die fucker. Right on time. The blasts from Bakugu's hands were aimed directly at the blonde villain's head, knocking him away from Todoroki. This allowed my best friend to finally shoot a large blast of fire at him, one so unpredictable that he was unable to dodge after Bakugu. Bullseye was on his feet, but instead of fighting us, he began running, far and fast. Bakugu tried to chase him, but both Todoroki and I knew he'd get away. Damn it. That beach is a scaredy cat. I smiled. Kaken would always be the same. Thanks, I told him seriously. It was only because of him that we were able to surprise Bullseye and gain the upper hand. Just be grateful Todoroki sent me the message with his ice, Bakugu muttered. This just goes to show how weak you are, Deku. I, unlike you, can actually win all the battles with villains. He bragged as usual. I admired him for his combat skills. I still had a lot to learn, he was right about that. But at least it seemed everyone was safe. And the pro-heroes had finally arrived, taking care of the rest of the villains in just a few moments. All Might was taken straight to the school's hospital wing, and I wasn't allowed to see him. But the one thing that kept repeating in my mind was the fact that Bullseye claimed so fervently that I was All Might's son. I don't think that's possible. But I can't be too sure, as I've never really known my father. My mother claims he works across the sea in America, but I have no idea. I've never called him or texted him before. It's a big, huge secret. And my mother also says she's never divorced him or fell out of love. Whatever's going on, I will have to ask All Might and see his answer. Chapter 14, Bullseye. Once back in the safety of his own apartment, he tended to his wounds. DMN those FING kids, he had burns on his feet, and he had to wait for his contact with a healing quirk to arrive. Ketsuaki growled. He said off that they had managed to beat him. It was only for the kid he wasn't expecting that had shown up. The one with the strong explosion quirk. He realized his future vision still needed the practice to level up, to predict the unexpected, to see the confusing patterns of people's choices and fighting. Of course, he'd spend every moment he could training. There was no way he was going to let those kids beat him again. Though he was prideful of his masterful defeat of All Might, with the news already all over social media that he'd been hurt. And he bragged about it to all for one, in addition to revealing that the pro-hero soon would retire due to how weak he was, struggling to even keep an even form let alone throw punches at full speed and power. He kept the Midoriya as All Might's son information to himself. Ketsuaki felt that would give him the exact jump he needed to leap over All for One. And his battle with All Might, which had been filmed, blessed those students with their smartphones and Snapchat, had earned him huge respect and fame amongst the villain community. Well, and hate. Some villains respected him much more, while others were writhing in jealousy and vengeance directed at him. UA officials have stated that the scheduled sports festival is still continuing on time despite the attack. Tune into any news channel for coverage of our newest heroes, including Class 1A, 1 week from today for the annual sports festival. Ketsuaki's ears perked up. A chance to watch the same kids in action was the perfect way to study each of their quirks, fighting styles, strategies, and would help him level up his quirk. He'd sneak into the arena to watch, just like other villains had done in the past. Until then, training his fighting and all-seeing eye would be at the top of his list of things to do. A knock on the door startled him out of his thoughts, but he knew it was simply a friend with a healing quirk. "Come in." A girl with pulled-back black and pink hair walked into the apartment, shutting the door behind her. She placed her hands on her hips, giving him a seriously expression of slight annoyance. He heard the pop of her bubblegum before she spoke. "You're hurt again. I think you knew going against UA students would be hard." She made no move towards him. "And fighting All Might? You reckless fucker." "Well, what can I say, Veronica? I'm in it for the fun." He grinned, though he winced when he moved his feet. That kid's fire packed a punch, but he shouldn't be surprised since it came from the son of the second-place pro-hero. Veronica finally moved towards him, crossing her arms. "But I will say I'm rather impressed. Your popularity has shot up, making you wanted by the police and a well-respected villain amongst many. Not that the police will find your secret identity." She took a seat across from him and pulled out a knife. "You're lucky I like you enough to heal you." Ketsuaki knew well how her quirk worked, very strange, yet unique. She used the knife to make a small cut on his wrist, a few drops of blood dripping down his hand, not that he minded. The burns on his feet and any scratches and bruises slowly disappeared. The last thing to leave his skin was the cut she'd made. And her work was complete. "There, now, if you don't mind, I'll stick around. If I know anything about you, you're going to need my help again shortly." She moved onto the couch, spreading out as if it were hers. Ketsuaki rolled his eyes, but she had a point. If he was to face off against All Might or those kids ever again, he would need her power and her combat skills. Powerful allies would be the key to destroying the hero society. After all, he still believed in his mentor, the one who took him in over anyone else, Stain. Midoriya Izuku. I walked into the hospital ward of UA, where I knew All Might would be. I asked to speak with him in private, so the nurse, as much as she knew the secrets of top hero's quirk and true form, wouldn't be a part of the conversation or overhear anything. My hands were shaking and I did my best to stop them, but I couldn't help it. Talking to him about this would be difficult for many reasons. All Might? I cautiously asked, and the man slowly sat up, his blue eyes staring at me carefully. It was clear he was feeling better, but not nearly enough to stand up or leave. He'd probably be here overnight. But he seemed to know why I was here, and he shifted, gaze falling towards the bed. He told you, didn't he? So it's true. Honestly, I couldn't really believe it, and this information would take me a long time to process fully. I mean, I didn't want to believe him. After all, he is just a villain, but why choose me for your power? And why protect me? And why my mother claims she still loves my father yet they never talk? It started to slowly make sense. Midoriya, my boy, I wanted to be the one to tell you when the time was right. But yes, it's true. You're my son. That's why you weren't born with a quirk. One for all can't be transferred like normal quirks are inherited. And I didn't have a quirk either before one for all, part of the reason I had to give it to you. And to keep the hero business in the family. All Might paused, finally looking back at me after admitting it. There was something different in his eyes, a longing, a sense of loyalty to family. So why leave? Why the secrets? I didn't understand. If he was my father, why did he never visit when he wasn't out saving people? At least to say hi, to spend some time with his family. You know the answer to that, my boy. He chuckled, which turned into a coughing fit. Once he was breathing normally, he clarified. Bullseye, he went straight for Todoroki after close observance. Villains were going to constantly be after you and your mother to get to me. Especially because I'm the symbol of peace. I have the utmost responsibility, but also the largest sum of money on my head from the evilest of evils. In order to give you two a relatively normal life, I left. I used most of my money at the time to keep this a secret. I'm sorry, but it was for your own protection. I took a moment to think about that. He sacrificed himself, his life, his family, and his love for the greater good of society, and to keep me and my mother safe. I couldn't believe it. As much as I wanted him to be the father I'd always imagined, I understood why this was kept such a dark secret. He really was a hero, a true heroic spirit through and through. Tears started streaming down my face and I couldn't stop. I'm so sorry. I understand. I wish you could come home. My mother, she's been through so much. She wouldn't admit it, but I know after you left she had more anxiety. I rambled on. I felt two warm arms around me, and he pulled me into his shoulder. I continued to cry, not realizing how much I had longed the comfort of a father or even a father figure. I hugged him back, tightly, sniffling and slowly but surely calming down. I heard something. Soft sobs, not from me but from him. My father. I'm so sorry too, Izuku. I wish I could have been with you and your mother as well. I missed you. And that was the truth. I could tell in his voice, cracking slightly from his tears. At least I knew the truth now. That was more important than anything. Now, things would be different. Maybe we could be a real family. No, I had faith we would be a real family soon.